Spencer. We're swapped around again.
Huh?
We're swapped around again.
Yep, I know you do it on purpose. Well, hey everybody. We got 51 people watching right off the get-go. Not bad, not bad. Hello everyone. How's everybody's new year getting kicked off? It's snowing at my place. Not a good sign.
It's raining here, so
Yeah.
Well, that's what we got. We got rain. It's about 45 degrees.
Oh, I wish it was 45.
No, I think it's 39 here. Right?
yeah. It was 34 because I was like, ooh. But I think we're supposed to get some snow tonight. So.
Greg, you guys ain't getting no snow or ice out of this?
No, they changed our forecast some. I mean, we may get something, but I doubt it. A week ago they were saying that toward the end of this coming week we would have been like, they were predicting like -5, -8. Now they bumped it up to the low supposed to be like 18. So who knows? I mean, they don't know. We may get something, we may not.
What they call it? Like it's a polar vortex? Is that what it's called? And it's got like a pattern. And I think if you're in the pattern, you get hit hard. But if you're right outside the pattern, it's not that bad. So
yeah, it's supposed to, I noticed that the people down in Florida was like freaking out because it's supposed to go down in the 20s. I mean, that's going to be horrible on them.
Yeah, well.
Ooh.
Well, Pam, Paul, thank you for getting on here. I assume Squirrel will be on here directly. She's fiddling with something backstage. I don't know. But I'm going to say that pretty much everybody, Billy says he's covered down there. Yeah, we are too. I'm going to say that pretty much everybody knows Pam and Paul. If you've met them at one of the meet and greets, they've been to both of ours. I think didn't you guys go to one of the Sawdust Beast meet and greets, or am I wrong on that?
No.
Mm.
Sawdust?
Well, we went to LBL last year, and then Alabama. We've been to.
Yeah. Okay. So you've been to both of ours. Well, ours are the Sawdust Beast meet and greets. It's same difference. But anyway, and of course, for everybody that has not seen them, they've done a couple interviews with several people, going back to Carry On. But a lot of that stuff did not get released. God bless. We all know why. Mark Newbill is doing a documentary series. Mark from Sawdust Beast is doing a documentary series with them. Is he doing it at your property? He's been there a couple times recording, right?
Yeah.
And then they've also given several interviews on other channels. Didn't you say you were just on Miss V's? That's right. Yes, you were.
Yeah.
The Not So Perfect Bigfoot Show.
Yeah, well, she changed the name.
Oh, she did change the name?
To Muddy Creek Podcast.
Oh, okay. All right. Learn something new all the time. I can't keep up with all the shows in the Bigfoot world.
Yeah.
But anyway, so here's the thing. Since everybody knows Pam and Paul, and they know their story, and I'm not going to make Pam cry on TV recounting some of the horrible stuff. We were talking Mr. Larry Porch, and they've actually had some stuff happen recently. But if you would, instead of giving like a detailed going through everything, let's at least start with how long ago did you buy the property, when you first started paying attention to what all was happening. And then we'll real quick touch on all that stuff and then get up here to what's been happening recently.
Okay, well,
We bought it in 2015.
yeah, but we started hunting it. We started hunting in 2004.
Yeah.
And then we bought, there was 80 acres, and we bought 40 of the 80 in 2015. But we had strange things happening while we were hunting that we didn't know. I mean, we didn't know anything then. Just keeping on tracks. Couldn't figure out what would leave these tracks. That was like what, the second year?
About the same year, I think.
But I was growled at. Just the whole scenario of things. I kept wondering what was pacing behind my deer stand. Kept hearing a loud thumping noise behind my stand. I still hear that periodically.
You guys were just like Greg, had no idea what was going on. It just started happening.
I wasn't bluff charged, but I was growled at. And I knew whatever growled at me, there was nothing around here that could do what I heard. And I was still like, what is going on? But, and then in 2015, we bought 40 of the 80. And then that's when I found what I thought were tracks. I actually seen something like, I think it was the night before I found the tracks. We have two cedar trees across the creek, and I seen something running between those two trees, from one tree to the other. And I told Paul, I said, I just saw something, And then I guess it was like the next day or the day after, I found it was just one small track and one bigger track, and they're not real clear. I've had people say that the small track they think is a bare double step, but if you look at it, you can see almost like a what they call the mid-tarsal break. I didn't know anything about that. Kerry Arnold was the one that pointed that out to me. He said, "No, you can see the mid-tarsal break right there." I didn't even know what a mid-tarsal break was.
That's okay.
But,
well, whenever you were hunting the property before you moved out there, number one, did you ever have anything thrown at you while you were out there hunting? Do you have pine cones or acorns or rocks or anything thrown at you?
I don't think
Not that I'm aware of.
I never had anything thrown. I just, hear weird stuff behind me.
We'd hear wood knocks all the time.
Didn't know what
But
that
didn't
was.
know what it was,
Whenever you say you heard wood knocks, was it a lot of times? Was it whenever you got there and got out of the vehicle? Was it after you were already
No, it'd be while I was on the stand.
on the stand?
Yeah, because my brother would come out here and hunt with me a lot, and we'd hear it, and we'd always talk to each other after we'd hunt. What was all that knocking about?
Well, his brother actually saw something, out here, and it was probably about 8 foot tall.
Yeah. Solid black.
Solid black.
And it walked in a creek. It didn't ever come out. It went into the creek and then walked away from him up the creek and never come out of the creek, But he said it was really tall. And we done a size comparison later. So it was probably, it had to be at least about 8 foot tall.
Big enough.
Yeah.
The one that you saw, Pam, run between the cedar trees, was it upright or was it on all fours?
It was upright because I could tell whatever it was big. It was dark. We had a yard light, and it shines out past the creek, and there's just enough time where I could see a solid black object run from one tree to the other. And I can remember it now. Now the trees have gone, but back then, they were a lot smaller, and I had a certain limb picked out as to where I saw the top of the head. And whenever me and Paul went out there and looked, it was about 8 foot tall.
So the whole time that you were hunting the property, and I've heard your account several times, but you've had so much happen that I even kind of get it confused.
Mhm.
The whole time that you were hunting the property, did you actually see one clearly while you were hunting the property, or did that not happen until after you moved in there?
No, I mean, I never seen anything.
And I never did. My brother's the only one seen
Seen.
anything while
And
we
that was before you moved in there. Your brother, the thing with your brother.
And we asked him, well, what did it look like? He said, I don't know. He said it was just big and black. He said, and even now, with everything that has happened out here, you still can't get him to say that it was a Sasquatch. He always just says, I don't know what I saw. No,
Hold on one sec. Let me look at some. There was some audio clipping. I think it's coming from your microphone.
mm-hmm.
Do you have anything hooked to Bluetooth?
No. I mean, because I unhooked my phone from Bluetooth.
Maybe turn. Maybe turn the volume down just a hair on your end, if you can.
Okay. Is that better?
I'm not hearing it now.
Okay. Well, I know this microphone in this laptop. No, I think I still hear that.
Yeah.
I've had to have it replaced twice.
I mean, it's okay. We can hear you real good. It's just it's something that I keep hearing whenever you talk. So whenever you moved in, first of all, that's a beautiful cabin. Y'all look at that cabin. Paul spun the camera around and I got to see the view. By the way, Greg, he's got a rack on that back wall back there, back behind him. On the other side, that's really impressive.
That's over there. This side over here is Pam's.
Yeah.
Pam, those are nice too.
Yeah. I always tell everybody, they come in, they start looking at his. I said, quit looking at those. Come go look at the other side.
That's it.
The cabin that you're in right now, is this the place where, didn't you have something, it come up on the deck, or you saw it from the deck, something? No? Am I getting that confused?
We had a handprint on the front window here.
Yeah, on the sliding.
Yeah, they come up, but they come up, right?
Yeah.
So it was right there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How far are you from, like, the creek, where your house is? How far away is it?
50 yards.
50
maybe.
yards.
Oh, wow. Okay. All right. Well, then, after you moved in the house, I will say the other one that I'd like you to touch on, just because so many people had this happen, not the swimming pool thing, not yet, but the other one is you were talking about going down the hill and seeing something over in the clearing. Would you say a power line clearing?
Mm-hmm. Oh.
And you went up to turn around and come back, but you couldn't really stay there because of the road or something. Yeah. Could you talk about that? Didn't both y'all see that one?
That's happened to both of us
a couple of times.
Yeah, 4 different times.
And
it's really,
like when you're going out, there's a big major power line, and then there's a smaller one. And as you go down this little hill, then you can see, but you're already down the hill, so you can't really back up, because at that time when we first moved out here, there was a cabin out here that these people were renting out, and a woman and her daughter lived there, and then there was also another husband and wife that lived back here, so we didn't want to back up. And then to go turn around is a big ordeal because there is no place to turn around. It's only a 1-car road. And then you'd have to go all the way down, turn around, and then go back, and then turn back around because of the way it's land lays. But yeah, we've seen stuff there several times.
I know 3 or 4 times.
Mm-hmm.
3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, now every time
I've seen something there 3 times myself.
Mm-hmm. Well, I've seen something there.
Well,
2 or 3 times.
2 times in the little power line and 1 time in the big power line.
Mm-hmm.
Every time that you saw it, because I'm sure you guys are always like looking whenever you go up and down the driveway then.
Yeah.
But every time that you've seen it, when you're driving by and you slow down and you're looking over there, is it far away to where you're like, oh, wait, that looks like a tree or a bush out there? I mean, are you getting a good look at it, or?
Right. It's not a good look every time because the ones I seen was probably 150 to 200 yards away.
Oh, okay.
I'm guessing.
The one that you and our friend saw,
It
was
was
it that
pretty,
far?
Pretty good piece down.
Okay, I couldn't remember.
It was 100 yards anyway.
Is every one of them? I know about the one by the pool, but have a majority of them been black in color that you've seen out there?
The three I've seen
Is
in
it
black, if that's what I was seeing. Yeah.
Right. Yes, Paul. If that's what you're seeing, we'll all say that.
Well, now, and we did see when we was coming home from church one day, and now we can drive over the creek, but used to we literally have to drive through the creek. And he stopped in the middle of the creek and looked down, and I said, what are you doing? I looked down, and there was an arm. You could see it splashing the water back and forth, and it was black.
An
It's
arm
water. It was splashing the water 3 foot out of the creek.
Wait, hold on. Go into detail on that one. Describe that in detail, the whole thing, please.
You did.
Okay, we would come home from church, and used to, when we'd cross the creek to get to our driveway that comes up through the woods here, you had to drive down in the creek, actually in the water, and come out, But after we built the house, we put some culverts in there.
Right.
Now you can actually drive over. But at that time, we were driving through, and I had pulled off down in the creek. We was in her car, and we got right in the middle of the creek, and I just happened to look to my left downstream, and I seen water splashing. There was an arm. I don't know. I can't see it on here, but it was we were seeing
about 3.5.
2.5 to 3 foot of arm, but it was probably about
wrong way.
that big around. I'd say size of a soccer ball or so. And it was solid black. It was so black, it just, you ever seen hair that is so black it's blue?
Yep. Shiny.
It was. And it was just sitting there doing this number.
Back and forth.
Splashing water back and forth. And the water, like I said, was just splashing up probably about 3 foot out of the creek, And well, the people that live on the hill, the next hill over, our gates are pretty much side by side there, and there's only one lane out right here, and we was parked right in the creek. Well, his wife was coming out their gate at that time, so I had to get out of the road. So we pulled on through so she could get by, and we didn't. I wanted to go back down there, but we didn't until about 4 or 5 days later, I guess.
Yeah, well, it took you about 2 days to kind of.
I didn't know what I was saying.
Yeah.
I couldn't explain it.
But about 2 days later, he said, Pam, he said that was an arm. He tried to rule out everything he could.
Yeah.
Because your brain don't want to wrap around seeing something like that.
But we went back down there just to kind of see if there's any tracks or anything. And where this thing was at, there's kind of a bend in the creek there. And, it's brushy all down through there. But there's a deep hole just below that end. And that's where this was at. And I think this Bigfoot was sitting in that deep hole, cooling off and playing probably, and just splashing water.
I don't know. It was.
That's the only thing I can figure.
So what you were seeing was around the bend. You were seeing an arm stick out from around the bend.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
What time of year was it?
Spring. It was because I remember you could still see down the creek really good, but there was enough little, there was leaves coming out on the tree, but you could still see down the creek really good.
House, they said it was so black it almost had a bluish tint to it.
Well, and you could see the sun like just glistening off the hair. It was crazy.
Yeah, the ones I've seen here that the sun was hitting, they would be. It was like the hair was so shiny, it was reflecting light. And it made it as the muscles move, it made it look silver.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? It's like
Yeah.
it was reflecting off the sunlight certain
Yeah.
directions. You know, the curvature of the arm muscles, like when they would bulge,
Yeah.
you could see it almost like it was trying to change colors.
Mm-hmm.
How long do you reckon the hair was on the arm?
I didn't see none really just hanging off of it. You know, I would say 2 or 3 inches.
I mean,
that's that far away. It's
yeah,
kind
kinda
of hard to tell.
Sure. All right, Pam. All right, you don't have to go into all the detail about the pool thing, but I do want to ask you some questions about it.
Mm-hmm.
For everybody that doesn't know, she had a scary, traumatizing experience with one at the pool where she actually laid eyes on it. I want to know, number one, I've heard you say in interviews where, literally you heard God or an angel or something tell you not to look at it, just to get your butt back in the house. So you're not saying, just so we're clear, you're not saying mind speak from the booger.
No.
You're saying something else, right?
Because I've heard this, that had made the 4th time in my life, and it's a female. And each time I heard this voice, it either saved my life or my kids. And it's always been in a life and death situation, And whenever she said, "Don't look at it," there I go getting emotional. I knew right then I was in danger, So,
without trying to relive it,
mm-hmm.
people can go back and watch your other interviews where you talk about it. So I'm not worried about that.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't really get into the whole everybody describing. PJ is brave, and I always appreciate her telling her story and getting the whole word out about these creatures. Well, thank you. Yes, she is very brave. I'm not a big fan of everybody describing the boogers in high detail.
Mm-hmm.
And even in this case, you looked at it, you saw it, but then you didn't look at it because something was telling you not to look at it and to get your butt in the house. But would you please, in as much detail as you can, describe what you were looking at and how far away it was?
Well, it was approximately 40 yards away, and 20 of that being the yard, and then the driveway, and then the other 20 it was in the woods, or I say woods. The beginning of the woods wasn't super thick, and then it, kind of thickened up. It was right at the edge before it got real thick. But it was reddish brown. And I had initially thought maybe about 7.5 foot tall, but I think it was on your show where somebody had made a cutout on a 4x8 sheet of plywood, and there was a guy standing in front of it.
Yeah.
I actually screenshot that because I thought, if Paul would have been standing, because we done like a size comparison, Paul would have come up to about where that guy did on that 4x8 sheet Bigfoot cutout. But it was reddish brown. And this was what was crazy. Okay, the head was not conical. It was rounded. But the shoulders was like it had on shoulder pads. They just went straight out. There wasn't no slope to them or anything like that. They just went straight out, and there was every bit of 4 foot wide. And I could see the pec muscles in the chest. This thing had taken its hair, and I believe that it had pulled its hair around. This thing looked groomed. It wasn't dirty, matted up hair, sticks and leaves. This thing looked like it had been brushed. I mean, and I could see, the hair came about down to here on it, and I could literally see the cutoff line from the hair to the hair on the chest, but I could see the, the chest muscles. I could see the arm muscles, and it had its arms like bowed. And I don't know if it's just because the muscles were so big they couldn't lay further to the side, but it looked like they were bowed out, like it was going to charge. And I could see the hair hanging off the arm is about 6 inches long or so, because it was blowing in the wind. And then it tapered at the waist. This thing, it came down, it was tapered at the waist. And then I could see the right side really good, because the sun was hitting it on that side. And I could see the thigh. I could see the thigh muscles. I could see the knee. And I could see the top part of the calf on the right leg. I couldn't see the left leg as good. And, as far as ever seeing it move, I never seen it move. I could see the wind, the hair blowing in the wind. But whenever I heard her say, "Don't look at it," I just looked back like I was, didn't even see it. And, anyways.
Thank you. Sorry.
That's all right.
So you couldn't see the face because the hair was pulled down over the face. I could ask you 1,000 questions on just this one thing, but why do you think it would stand? Now, you had already had stuff happen out there at the pool where you were paying attention to what was happening out at the pool. In fact, Carrie had you go ahead and get back in the pool and make noise and everything. And then didn't you say that even whenever you did that and Carrie was there, something happened, right?
Oh, the tree went over. Tree went over.
Yeah, tree was pushed over.
And then we heard 2 knocks.
And then they went over there to kind of see if they could see where the tree was at, and then 2 knocks across the other side of the power line.
Yeah.
So.
Why do you think it was standing out where it could be seen? Why do you think it pulled its hair over its face? I mean, do you think its hair naturally fell like that?
No, I don't think it. I mean, and see, earlier in the week on Monday, that happened on a Thursday. On Monday, I was in the pool and I looked down this, I don't even know how you call it, like a little trail, and it opens up into like a little small field. I seen something reddish brown sticking out of the woods, and it looked like a shoulder and part of a head. And I'm like, what is that? And then I was laying on the mat and I floated over, got a drink, and I come back and it was gone. So I thought, okay, what was that? And then we heard a knock that night. Then Wednesday night we heard a knock and something sneezed on the other side of the house. And this was not a deer. And then Thursday was when I think he had been watching me, which I'd only gotten in the pool that Monday. And that Thursday, I had to get in there Thursday to clean it. But I think he had been watching me on Monday. And I think when he come back, I think he wanted me to sing. But why he covered his face, I don't know. I believe 100% he had bad intentions. That's just what I feel. Because when I walked out of the house that day, I heard a grunt come from my left up into the woods. I stopped and I looked around. I didn't see anything. And then I went on, I got in the pool and I heard it again. So I was already on high alert, Then I heard, some other noises, like metal hitting metal, which was opposite of where I heard the grunts, 2 different directions. So now I'm even wondering, was there 2 of them?
Probably.
And that even freaks me out even more, But as far as the hair, I don't know. I have ran that over in my mind over and over. Why? Carrie thought maybe he thought he was camouflaging himself. And Carrie seemed to think that maybe he had done that quite often. And I just happened to see him that day.
According to the trail,
there was a
Carrie found.
Yeah.
He had been coming in there
quite
often because they was a beat out trail right to the tree where she seen this thing. And you can go out there now and the trail's not there.
Yeah, it's not there.
Would there have been any other reason why it would have been coming down to the pool? Any kind of wild plums or a food source or anything?
No, not in that area.
So it's most likely it was coming there to see you.
Mhm.
And every time that it did it out there around the pool, was Paul home or was Paul not there? It was just you.
Just me.
Well, now you could still hear stuff
I would,
while I was
yeah, I would still hear knocks. He's heard knocks when I'd be in the pool. But
Yeah, but twice you caught maybe once a glimpse of it, and the other time you actually laid eyes on it.
he wasn't here.
Yeah, see, it's stuff like that, I really think everybody needs to be careful with thinking that these things are the friendly forest giants and all that kind of stuff. And stuff like that doesn't, I mean, maybe it's just me, but it seems like they watch, and whenever the males leave,
Mhm.
it's like they feel more emboldened to come up to the property. I can think of so many times I've heard this from different people. And for whatever reason, they'll make themselves known to the females. But
well, I mean, it was to a point to where I would pull up in my car and get out a knock.
yeah,
It's almost like they're saying she's home.
yep.
And it was, getting to where, I mean, it was like that. That happened to me a lot, especially that summer of my sighting, and then the next year. Now things have kind of calmed down, but I've and some people might think this is crazy, but I have went out there and I've told them they better back off, and I have rebuked them in the name of Jesus Christ. That's how I deal with stuff. And,
There you
go. And now we still get the house hit, but so far I don't feel as stalked, I guess you could say, like I had been those couple of years there. But I do believe 100% that he had bad intentions that day. I know it. There ain't nobody that can change my mind. I know people say that they have good relationships with them, and I'm glad that you do. But for me that day, he was not being nice.
Hey.
I honestly think that if the good Lord hadn't have stepped in, I wouldn't be sitting here today. I believe that 100%. And it wasn't because he'd done something scary. He was standing there like he was going to charge. But it was because of my guardian angel, and that's what I call her. And I know how that had, when I've heard her in the past. And so that day when I heard her, I know. I just, I know. And I think I've seen that same one this past summer. I think he was letting me know that he's still around.
Well, how long ago was the pool thing?
That was in 2021.
So, all right. So over the past 4 years, now a lot of your stuff that you've talked about on the shows, you've predominantly talked about, the stuff that happened, but not a lot here in the past year or so. Mm-hmm. So you still have activity and everything happening there, right? Mm-hmm. Give us a rundown of what all has happened in like the past year or two.
Well, I've seen a like an ash gray colored one, probably about, that would have been in July, probably August of 2022, because it was about a week or so after Carrie left. I saw like an ash gray one, and it was smaller. And then I seen something in the creek. It was walking down the creek, and all I could see it was like little bits and pieces, but I could tell it was bipedal, and this was like a light brown color. And then this past summer, I was sitting in my swing, and I was looking up in the trees. About how far away is that tree that we across over there to the other creek? Because we actually have
125 yards.
We have a creek that runs, through our yard, and then you cross the little field, and there's another creek. Those creeks join together, on down the creek.
Sure.
But so probably it's about another, I don't know, 150 yards.
125.
150. I happened to look up in a tree, and I seen something it was like a reddish brown up in a tree, and it was big, big.
Up in the tree.
And I was watching it, and I watched it for probably 20 minutes. And at one time, I thought I saw it move, but I can't be 100%, because leaves are blowing. And then I was texting a friend, and I was looking down at my phone, texting. When I got it sent, I looked up, and it was gone. So me and Paul went over there, and he found what inside. There was an old tire over there. It looked like something had stepped right in the middle of that tire. But
Looked like a footprint.
yeah. And then the bark from the trees was all laying on the ground, from the tree.
Yeah.
But and then I was coming home from taking my little grandson to meet Mom, and I just come by the power line. And I looked to my left, and there's a gap there. It's during summer. It's leaves and vines and everything, but then there was a little gap, and I just happened to turn and looked in that gap, and it would have been about 40 yards away from me. There was something standing there. There's nothing there, but I seen something there. I quit looking. I just kept going. I didn't even want to look. I did not want to look, because the next day when I went back through, I looked, and I thought maybe there's a cedar tree there. There was no cedar tree there. There was something big standing there. And then it was at the end of summer. Paul went down the driveway to cut it. There was a dead tree, and I was sitting in the swing, and I started getting this uneasy feeling, and I thought, well, I'm going to get on the 4-wheeler and drive down there to where he's at, see how much more he likes. So as I got it from the swing, and I turned right to go towards the shop is about 50 yards from my swing. I heard that loud thump. It's a real loud, like a sandbag, big, heavy sandbag being thrown, And I turned and I looked down where I had initially saw that reddish brown thing, on that Monday, peeking out from the woods. I looked down because it came from that direction. So I looked down there, didn't see anything, and I kept walking towards the shop. Heard that sound again, and when I turned back around, there was that reddish brown sticking back out of them woods. I thought, oh my God, no, that has to be leaves or a dead tree limb or something. That's what I'm telling myself. I get on the 4-wheeler, take off, go down there where he's at, and come back. And as I come back, I turn and I look down that way. There's nothing there. So I pulled up the shop and I turned around, stood exactly where I was seeing it. There was nothing there. And that's when I told him. And I literally almost went to a panic attack because it brought all that back. But I felt like he was saying, I'm still here. Let me know he's still around.
You think it was the same one?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I do.
Ugh.
You asked earlier if we had any rocks or twigs or anything thrown at us while we were hunting. Not while we were hunting. I was cutting some cedar across the creek one day, and Pam was with me. We took the side-by-side over there, and I had fell a couple of cedars, and I was delimbing them. And I went back to the side-by-side to tighten. I think they had to tighten my chain or sharpen my chain.
I think you're sharpening it.
And while I was doing that, here come a rock whizzing through the woods, and you could hear it clipping the limbs.
Mm-hmm.
You hear it hit the ground with a thud, and roll.
It was a big rock.
Yeah, it was a big rock.
How big? Softball size?
It sounded to be,
We never
probably-
seen it.
Yeah, it sounded like it would have been a rock about like that. Just by the sound.
Well, when it hit the ground, it sounded like a car door slamming. It was loud.
And it landed probably, I don't know, I'm guessing 75 yards from us.
It wasn't close,
Yeah,
but
it just thrown in our direction,
Yeah. That was the subtle get out of here.
Yeah.
Well, I looked at him.
I give her the shotgun and said, "You stand guard. I'm gonna finish this tree up."
Oh,
But then this spring, I was down on the river setting some limb lines out, and it's off of a high bank there, and right off the high bank, it kind of levels off just a little bit, and I was tying a limb line out. And here come a rock, throw it in the river right beside me, and I went ahead and finished tying my line off and walked back up the embankment there, and I looked all through the woods there. I didn't ever see anything. You know.
it's so
was
thick.
strange.
Yeah.
Did you catch any fish?
Nope, they never caught a fish.
And they even
And I
said,
don't know why. Well, maybe he checked my lines for me. I don't
That's
know.
that's what I was thinking.
you say that bait that you put on there was like really hard to get on and off, and there was no bait on there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, all my bait was off script. I should have caught fish there, but I didn't.
Oh, that's fine. Okay, so let me ask you, instead of all of your, because like I keep saying, your experiences have been pretty well covered. If none of us knew anything about boogers, and you guys have had all of this happen, if I was like, oh, tell me about them, tell me what they do, tell me, do they have any habits? So for as many years as you've experienced these things, have you noticed any patterns? Have you noticed any habits? Do you have any ideas about them traveling? If they do travel, are they always in your area? Are they eating certain things in your area? Anything that makes you suspicious? Are you hearing vocalizations at certain times of year? Teach me about boogers. Come on.
They like blackberries.
Yeah.
I do know that.
Why?
We've got a big patch of blackberries out here, or did. I actually mowed it down. But we went out there one afternoon, and we was looking at all the berries, and I told Pam, I said, tomorrow, when I get off
They were
work,
all gone.
I'll come over here, and I'm going to pick all these, and well, I went over the next afternoon, and those were stripped.
even on the tall. I mean,
Yeah.
way up.
Yeah. You couldn't get through these up here. You know,
For 3 years in a row since I moved to this new house, we've got an apple tree and a pear tree, and every year, well, the first year it had the most on it, but every year they've produced fruit. And the pear tree is 35 foot tall. The apple tree is probably a little over 24, 25, something like that. But as soon as it's starting to get ripe, because I keep looking, and my kids are always like, hey, when are we going to get some of that? I was like, every single year, it's like overnight, the whole tree's wiped out. It's just gone. So they get your blackberries. Do they get anything else? Y'all grow a garden?
We tried a few gardens. Our first year was really
good, but after that we haven't had we haven't had a lot of luck. But I know, I mean, I've had deer that I've shot, couldn't find it, see where it laid down, see where it got up and laid down, and then it got up and it laid down and got up and went about 3 foot and laid back down. So I knew, I thought, you know, and gone. No more sign of it.
And we made circles and circles around. Never could find any more blood or anything.
But, you know, we have, like I said, we have the two creeks here. We have a spring. The river is less than a mile away. So there's plenty of wildlife. There's plenty of, you know, there's fish in the rivers, the blackberries.
And I think they like deer guts too.
Yeah.
I shot a deer,
not this past, yeah, but.
And so I just hauled it down here to my shop, and then I took it behind my shop to field dress it back there. And I've got another stand behind my shop back there. So I just took it down there by that stand. I wasn't going to hunt that stand. So I just took it down there and I field dressed it there. And that was at 10 or 10:30 that morning. Come back to the shop, dressed the deer, got all the meat in the coolers and everything like that. My brother was here, and I told him, I said, let's run down to the river and check that out down there before we do our afternoon hunt. We might jump up something down in there along the river. So we, after we finished the deer, we took off down there, and about 3, I guess there's 3 or 3:30, we come back. But I drove up the little power line where that's a little bitty power line here, where that stands at. And we drove up through there. We was on my side by side, and there where I had gutted that deer out. I mean, it was picked clean. All it was just a little bit of blood on the ground. Is the only evidence left of that gut pile. You know, and we had, after we cleaned the deer, we drove right by that. So I know it wasn't buzzards there or coyotes when we went to the river.
You would have seen them.
So, yeah.
So within 4 or 5 hours.
Yeah.
It was gone.
It was picked clean. It was gone.
Nothing.
Yeah.
But
I thought that was really strange in that short of time. Not, you know, I think coyotes, you would have seen drag marks, and I think they would have strung it out everywhere. And the same way with buzzards. I can't see buzzards eating that much in that short of time. You know, because I've watched them eat rabbits or possums out here on the road, and it'll be there for 4 or 5 hours before it's completely devoured, you know. So I know this gut pile, it's strange.
But you know, and then we also, you know, we have all these power lines. We have 2 major power lines that converge and then go into another main power line. But you know, you was asking, I think this right here is just between the river, the creeks, the spring, all the wildlife, the power lines. I think it's just a prime area. And you know, and as far as like the vocals, I mean, now we heard something last night. Now we'll get to that. I do catch vocals. It started out mostly being knocks. Now, whenever Kerry was here, you know, he heard 5 vocals come from 5 different directions. So he said there had to be 5 of them surrounding. I mean, that's crazy. 5. You know.
No, that's not crazy. Did Kerry do a call? Did he elicit that, or did they just do it on their own?
No, they just he was standing. I was in the house, and he was standing out there eating, and he texted me, and he said something like they're yelling or something, and I come out the door, and I caught the end of one. Then I heard 2 perfect whoops, and then some other kind of vocal. But he was just standing out there eating. But you know, that's one. We don't do knocks. We don't do we don't do anything. We don't gift. We don't leave food. We don't do nothing. We just try to live our life. Now, when we first started thinking Bigfoot, you know, back during that time, we didn't really know about watching stuff on YouTube and trying to learn anything. All we was getting was what was coming on the TV. And they was saying to do knocks. And, you know, we had done some knocks and stuff out here, but Kerry Arnold's the one that changed my mind on that. You know, so, you know, he was.
And I don't know that it's wood.
Yeah.
Wood on wood knocks. And this is what Kerry thought too. But man, I really believe they're doing it with their mouth.
With their mouth. Because they all sound the same pretty much.
Because I've tested trees out here. You can take a stick and hit a tree 4 foot up or 2 foot down, and it's going to change the sound. Mm-hmm. You can go from an oak tree to a pine tree to a hickory tree. They're going to have a different tone to them. All these knocks sound the same, you know. So I think it's something with their mouth they're doing or something. I don't think it's a big club hitting a tree. I really don't.
They're either making it with their hands or mouth or. Now, there was a knock that I heard out here. Paul's sister came and stayed with me. And she wanted me to take her hunt. She'd never been hunting. And I was like, okay, you know, it was just me and her. But we were sitting in the stand. And there was a knock that come probably about 50, 60 yards from my stand. And it was loud, but it literally sounded like bamboo hitting bamboo. It had that hollow, weird sound. And she said, what was that? And I said, that was a knock.
You know, they might be popping their jaws. You know, like a bear. A bear will pop his jaw. You know,
It's possible. I've heard everybody theorize about everything from using their hand to slap a tree, slapping their chest, mouth pops. I
Yeah.
can tell you that what I've heard over the years most definitely sounds like wood on wood, but I'm not saying that's what it is. That I've also heard a knock one time. I heard pow, pow, and at the end of the second one, it sounded like a crack, like what they were hitting. Like in my head, I envisioned the stick broke whenever they hit it. But I can tell you this. Yeah, go ahead.
Let me throw this in. There's people out there that have got their mind made up that it's just that's what everybody thinks is their mouth popping. They do mouth pop 100%. I've heard it. I've been really close to it when they've done it. But I'm telling you, when you hear a true wood knock, there is no way that's anything but wood on wood, because it sounds like lumber splintering when it hit. And it is totally, that's the difference from a 3-year-old little girl's voice to a man that, 8 foot tall. And you'll actually, like Spencer just said, I've heard them knock and it absolutely sounds like wood's exploding. So, and there's so, and that's what everybody wants to put it in that little tiny box of this is what they do. There's so many different things that they do, and what y'all are experiencing may be different than somebody else. And that's the way they act different. And that's why I've been sitting here smiling the whole time, listening to PJ talking about the way they're doing there and how y'all have chosen the same path I have of, look, I'm going to try to leave them alone. I'm getting the interaction that they're letting me have, and I'm not calling them. I don't try to provoke them. I'm having to get along with them just like y'all are. And I want to ask y'all both, how many researchers or other people in the field has started off going, well, have you got cameras up? Are you recording? Are you doing this? Are you calling them? You knocking to them? And when you tell them, no, I'm not. And then they look at you like, well, why not? Well, they're not having to live with these things.
Yeah.
They're going 2, 8, 10 hours away, and we'll go rile up the natives and we're going to truck on back home. I've done been through what you went through with these things. And there's a difference between having an encounter where you're getting to hear something and experience something, flip that coin over, and you're going, oh shit, I'm about to die. I'm not going to live. I hope like hell I can live. I can live to say tomorrow. And that's when shit gets real. And that's when you realize, no, they're not, this ain't Harry and the Hendersons. Now, some people swear by that, and more power to them. But I'm telling you, these moody bastards down here, they ain't my friend.
Yeah. Well,
so.
And you've talked about the knocks there. I've heard some of the knocks. It sounds like
wood on wood.
2x4s.
Yeah.
You're just smacking, you know.
Well, I've heard what sounded like distinctly. Sounded like rocks clacking together, but I've only heard that a couple times. I've heard a ton of knocks. There's a place, and whistles. There's a place here where it's a wildlife management area, and this one road is normally closed. So a lot of times I have to walk back in there. But whenever the road is open, if you drive back in there, when I get out of the truck, you hear pow up there in the woods. I go over there and I set out recorders at this place for probably the better part of 2 years. Listening to the recording as I get back in the truck and drive away, because I'm in there walking around looking for structure and tracks and all that kind of stuff. So you get out, hear a pow. I go back to the truck, get the creepy feeling like something might be watching you while you're up in there, go back to the truck, leave. When I come back and pick up the recorder and I listen to it, 1 minute after I'm in the truck and the truck pulls out, I can't hear it because I'm in the truck. Pow on the recording. So, I mean, all of this stuff, my point is, I do believe that there are patterns that these things follow. They act different, like what House was saying.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they do mouth pops. I'm sure that they do. I've heard stuff that sounds like mouth pops. I've, with my own ears, heard rock clacking. I've heard knocks that sounded like tree breaking. I've heard branches break where it's just a crack. And then I've heard branches break where it's the crack, 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 pow, and it's explosive.
Yeah.
And then you hear like whole trees getting pushed over.
Mm-hmm.
They do different things, but I think they got some kind of pattern or some kind of system. You know, this means this. This means this. We just don't know what it is. That's my thoughts on it.
Yeah. I know I was hunting out here a couple of years ago.
Hey, Al.
And I had the mouth popping to my right, rock clacking to my left, and then something let out a howl behind me. And this whole time, I got one bar if I'm lucky when I'm sitting in my stand. I was texting Paul what was going on, and I said when I heard the howl, I said, "Come get me." I was done.
Whenever you say howl, so y'all know I'm big on the audio thing. Around here, we don't have a whole lot of vocalizations, but let's say LBL, for example. If we go out and do a call, normally you'll get that long, kind of monotone, drawn out howl. And then the coyotes will start. But it's a very long, drawn out howl. I've also heard howls that kind of sound like a scream with like a whip crack at the end. And I've heard stuff that sounds kind of like the siren call, but didn't go on that long. I wish it would have. Are you getting different kinds of howls and vocalizations throughout the years?
Yeah.
Especially the one with a real high-pitched
scream.
Yeah, almost like a scream, like, you know.
Does it end with the whip crack kind of sound, or is it just a scream, like a fox scream kind of thing?
I've heard a lot of fox scream. It's.
Oh no! I'm not saying it's a fox.
Yeah.
No. Just like the knocks. If you've ever heard a knock, a real honest to God knock, you don't look around thinking, "Oh, well, that was a deer ran into a branch and made that." That is not what it sounds like. If you get growled at, you don't look around going, it was something.
Yeah. Well, and trying to think of what I have recorded. I've recorded whoops, and I recorded some type of scream. I don't even know what to call whatever this was. And I think I tried to send them. I think I sent those to you. I hope you can listen to them.
I will.
But the howl that was behind me that day, it was more of a low toned howl. And it wasn't real long. But there's nothing behind me but woods. And I mean, there's no cows. There's no, and it had that low tone like a cow moo, but it wasn't a cow mooing. It was, but it had that low tone to it.
That's kind of like a couple of years ago. I was hunting back here, and that afternoon we were both hearing it was a real long howl. You know, she could hear them from her stand, and I was listening to them from my stand back there.
Do y'all ever smell them?
Oh
yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Let's go. Have you had different smells?
Yes.
Or is it all the same?
Only this year. This year is the first time we've ever had a different smell. It's always been the same smell every year. Until this year, we still smelled that same smell, but there's another smell came in just for like, a week or so?
No, it actually was longer than that.
Was it?
Yeah, it was longer
But
than
it's a real trashy smell.
Yeah.
Like garbage, I've never smelt that out here.
So what was your original smell? What did it smell like?
Urine.
Urine.
Rotten
Yes.
Urine. Woo.
I'm glad there's more people saying that, because I was like, am I the only one getting this? But anyway.
This urine smell is like
super strong.
Oh.
Yes. Is it strong to where it's like, see, like mine was super ammonia mixed with like musk, like animals, like horse sweat. It was like horse sweat and the strongest pee smell ever.
Mhm.
This right here,
I don't know. It's really just
strong urine. I
Strong
mean,
urine.
but it gets so bad sometimes that when you walk out and you walk into that smell, you can't stay there because it is that strong. And now there was one time that, and this is weird. We got up early one morning to go fishing, and it was getting stuff put in the truck, and I could smell that urine smell, but I could smell the urine and honeysuckle. I'm like,
Kumbo talks about the honeysuckle.
Yeah, we do have some honeysuckle.
this over by your shop.
No, it's
Oh,
over there.
we was down there by your shop, and I was like, why am I smelling urine and honeysuckle? And it was strong, the honeysuckle and the urine. But
Do you think now? I mean, I've heard different theories on the whole flowery honeysuckle smell. I've heard people say, Kumbo has said, I might be wrong on this, but he said if you're smelling the honeysuckle kind of thing, you're close to them. You're.
He says it's their breath.
Yeah.
really,
Yeah. And he said you're close enough that you're smelling that.
really. Well, I mean, there was woods, like he was down there by the shop. How close are the woods? 20 foot.
Yeah.
So
And the thing about it is, you might walk 30 foot away and not smell it
anymore.
anymore.
And then you turn back around, and it's
And it kind of will almost like follow you around. You can stop there, you'll start smelling it again.
Yeah.
Would you describe it as like a wall though? Like there's a clear, you could be right here, and then you walk into it, and you can.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I've had that more with the pungent, the musky, nasty smell. And that's what I've tried to tell people for years. It's like you take one step forward, it's like your head goes into it, and you pull your head back, you can't smell it.
Exactly.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But we start smelling that usually in the spring. And now this past summer, I smelt it almost every day from spring all the way, almost every day during the summer. And then it tapered off into the fall. And I have smelt it briefly through the winter, not as strong, and it would just, but from spring through early fall, I mean, it was every day. Every day.
That's what I'm talking about. Say that again. From spring through early fall, it was every day.
Yes.
All right. See, now we're getting somewhere. That's a pattern.
Well,
Okay.
I want to ask Pam one thing. You kept talking about the thud. You were hearing this thud like something hit the ground.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this, because I've had them do this. And what I attribute it to, I think the thing was stomping its foot.
Mm-hmm.
You think that might be what you were hearing?
Yeah. Well, I mean, Donnie Miller, he was hearing that thud, and when he turned, he said that thing was standing there, and I think it was stomping its feet. At first, I was thinking it was hitting its hands on the ground, but then I went back. I had to re-listen to his story, but he said it was stomping its feet, and that's what and he described it as like a sandbag hitting the ground, just like
It sounds like you dropped the anvil on kind of like wet dirt. I mean,
wet
it just
dirt, exactly.
I just wonder, because she said she saw a couple of them in a tree now, and she said one of them was the big one. I just wondered if it wasn't one of them
jumping
hopping down out of a tree. Yeah.
Could be.
Pam, have y'all ever had one?
Y'all keep talking.
I'll just say it like this. Have you ever had one throw a fit like a toddler, like work itself up where it starts off and it's like it's agitated, and then it gets worse and worse, and then they'll pace back and forth, or in a circle. They'll go like 20 or 25 feet back and forth in the woods, and it's like they're tearing everything up. And the more they pace, the worse they get. And then they'll go from just like making noises or growling, they'll start huffing and growling, and then they'll get up to where it just gets louder and louder, and they work themselves up. And it's just like they're psyching themselves up, making themselves madder and madder. Have y'all ever had that?
Well, now I had, this is when we were just hunting out here, before we bought 40 of the 80. I would have something pacing behind my stand, back and forth, probably 20 yards back and forth. And I'm like, what is this? Because I mean, you know, what paces back and forth? I asked him, I said, what would do that? And he's like, I don't know. You know, I mean, Bigfoot wasn't on my radar at that time.
Mhm.
But I could never figure. Now, I never heard any noise like breathing or like, you know, like it was working, like you said, you know, working itself up. All I would
Yeah.
hear was pacing back and forth, back and forth.
Mhm.
Now, a couple of years ago, I was hunting, and Paul had went up the power line to hunt, and I was at the bottom of the power line. And it was, you know, it was starting to get dark, and then to the left of my stand is just this really thick cedar thicket. And I was sitting there, and he was going to come down and pick me up for, you know, to come back to the house. Well, it was getting, you know, pretty dark. And I heard a deep breath, something take a deep breath in. I mean, when I say deep, I mean deep. And then let it back out. And it was right on the other side of them cedar trees where I couldn't see, and then plus it was getting dark. So I knew it was there. And it was letting me know it was there. And all I could do was sit there at the ready and pray until he come and got me. Because my deer stand, he built me a new stand, and he put stairs on it instead of a ladder because I almost fell out. But he put stairs on it, and the stairs at that time went right to those stupid trees. We rearranged it around where I don't have to get down into the trees. But it was right there. There was no way I mean, like, that stand's really going to protect me, but there was no way I was walking down them steps right there with that thing 25, 30 foot away from me. And I knew it was there. And all I could do was sit there at the ready and pray.
How do you think they get that close to you and then get away without you?
Well, this was dark. By the time he got down there, you couldn't have seen in there. He could have still been standing there for all I know, you know, but it was so dark. But as far as him sneaking up, you know, I mean, he was right there at the little creek. Could he have slipped up that creek? You know, I don't know.
Have you ever had any of the instances? I've only had one where you hear them, you know that they're there. You look, there ain't nothing there. You can't see them.
Mm-hmm.
Just curious, you ever had anything happen where you're like, who's making that noise? And you look right there and there ain't nothing there?
Mm-hmm. I mean, I've heard noises, you know, and never see anything, but to say that it was them, you know, I don't know. But I've sat, like, we was hunting a couple of years ago, and I was sitting there, and I just realized, I thought, there is not a sound in these woods. I mean, nothing. That's a creepy feeling. When you're sitting there and you hear not even a bird. I had that happen to me just a week or so ago. You know, nothing.
Do you ever get the creepy feels out of nowhere where it's like tangible, like you can feel it, kind of like static electricity? Your hair stands up and everything, and you know there's something there?
I pretty much have the creepy feels all the time. And that was a thing, you know, when we used to hunt out here, I would get those creepy feelings, you know, and I'd be like, man, why do I get these creepy feelings? Because that wasn't me. And but you know, now I know why. I have those creepy feelings all the time. You know, I don't think I can ever go to any woods ever again and not feel like I'm being watched. But then there's times that it is stronger.
Yeah.
You know,
And I think it depends on me. It depends on where I'm at.
yeah.
There's certain locations out here that
Mm-hmm.
just kind of gives you chills to walk through that area. You know?
Well, why do you think that is? What do you think it is about that spot?
Well, one area out here is where I found those 5 tracks, you know, on an old logging trail. But I don't know. Every time you walk through there, every time I walk through there, it gives me the chills.
Yeah.
You know? I don't know why.
are you finding any piles of bones?
We used to did.
Hmm.
Haven't since we built the house.
I found a
Well, we used to find the last 2 or 3 years. We found bones in her deer stand.
deer spine in my deer
What?
stand.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. All
And then
right.
So I
threw-
took it out, and we went back over a week later, and
It was
there was more in
there
there.
was more in there.
So
Now the phone thing that you talked about before, finding the phone and that about, you know what? In case, just on the off chance that people on here have not heard that, would you please talk about that, about finding the phone?
You want to sell it, or
you can.
well,
And
this
then you have to tell us all about exactly how you found a damn deer spine in your stand, and then other bones.
But well, this was before we, bought the property. We was just coming out here hunting. But we would come out here, sometimes 2 or 3, 4 times a week. We just, loved coming out here and riding around. Well, in the power line, at the edge of the power line, the people that lived out here at the time, I'm assuming it was probably their grandson had maybe tried to build a little fort and had some sheet metal stacked out there. And then, then the dad had came in and was going to mow the field, and he had moved that sheet metal, and so the grass was dead where the sheet metal had been laid, and he had stacked all that metal up. Well, and the people that owned it, the mom and dad were elderly people, and they had eventually, was they still living here? They wasn't living here at that time.
No, I don't think anybody.
Not at this time. They eventually had to move in with the son, and the son lives in another state, and he'd have to come in and kind of take care of stuff. Well, anyways, me and Paul came out, and we drove down this regular path that we always took, and that sheet metal had been moved, and then that there was the dead grass, and Paul seen a cell phone. It was an old flip phone, and it was laying there. He stopped, picked it up, and it had been chewed on. And, he opened it, it wasn't working or anything. So he just laid it on top of that sheet metal, which was about 6 foot away from the dead grass. And all this is, a flat area, So we went on about whatever we was doing and then left. Well, the next day we come back through. We always took the same path. We drove by, looked down, and there was that phone back in that dead grass, which, he had laid on top of that sheet metal. So
Exactly in the same place.
in the
too.
same exact spot. So, we was like, how did that get over there? So he picked it up and he put it back up on the metal. And, we left. And we come back out the next day, same route, drove by, looked down, cell phone was gone, but there was a piece of pipe. It was about 3 foot long.
It was 1/2-inch steel conduit pipe that you run wiring through. Is what it was.
And it was laying in that dead grass. Cell phone was gone. The pipe was laying there. And so we are like, what is going on?
Yeah.
He picks up the pipe and puts it on the metal. And, we went, done whatever it was, and then left. Well, we didn't get to come out like the next day. But the day after that, we was ready to get out here. See, we drove right, took the same path, drove up on that. Okay, the pipe was gone, cell phone was gone, but laying in that dead grass, there was a little bitty white flowery button.
And there was a button that, that it's got a hole in the middle of it.
Yep.
To the ceiling on a house trailer, the old house trailers.
Yep.
It
was a fastener. Yeah.
So we picked it up. I'm assuming we laid it on the metal, because I had my hair in a ponytail, and I took that out and I laid it down there because we didn't know Bigfoot done this stuff. We was just trying to figure out what was going on. So I took the ponytail out and laid it down there. And I had a piece of candy in my pocket, and I put it down there, and that laid there till. And then he found the cell phone. What? A couple of months later.
Yeah, a few months later. It was probably, I don't know, 200 yards or so away. And I was bush hogging, and I found it in the power line.
In the power line. But it was like 200 yards away. But you know what he did? He took that phone and put it in my deer stand.
Oh,
that was funny. Because we're going to come in here and hunt coyotes.
he and I climbed up in that stand, and he was sitting back, and
I told her, I said, you go over and sit in the stand, and I'm going to sit right here, and I'm going to call for coyotes. So I just kept an eye on her. I was wanting to see what she done when she in that stand. And she opened up that door on that stand, and there laid that phone. And boy, she jumped back, and she looked my way, and I about fell over laughing. Boy, it was so funny.
But he did find the phone, and then he put it in my stand. But now, and we did find a piece of mortar. This is after we built the house. We were sitting out front, and I just happened to look down between our chairs, and there was a piece of mortar that has all different colors, like yellow, orange, blue, and green, speckles all over it. It was laying right between our chairs, and I picked it up. I said, "Where'd this come from?" He said, "Well, that's mortar. We don't even have mortar on the property." I'm like, "But it was laying right here. Where'd it come from?" That rock has disappeared, come back, disappeared, and come back. So I put it out. I just set it out here on the edge of the house on the footing. We have like a 2-foot footer that goes around the house. I just set it out there, and it disappeared and came back, disappeared and came back. So I don't know.
Toys. It's their toys. Wait a minute. Hold on. Are you saying? What'd you do with the cell phone? The last time, what'd you do with it?
I have no clue.
Yeah.
I don't know what we ever done with it.
I don't know what I did after I found it in the stand. I don't know what we done with it.
Well, I mean, what'd you do with it once you found it in the stand? Did you take it and throw it on the ground? Did you throw it in the trash? What?
I don't
even
remember. I just know because I was shocked to find it in my stand.
Is it the same stand that you found the deer spine in?
No. Same area.
Same
but a
area.
new stand.
Different stand, but same area.
That's really bizarre. I want to hear about the deer spine, and then would you say different bones after that?
Yeah, the first ones I found was, I think there was 2 or 3 in there, just big chunks of spine. I think is what it was off of. I'm assuming a deer is what it looked like, and that's when I was in probably September because I was getting it ready for our October hunt, and I had taken them out and got all the leaves out of there.
Actually, it was probably in October because
It might have been October.
because we cleaned it out, and then the next weekend I was hunting.
Okay.
And that's when I found them back in there.
Yeah. But they was, they was big bones out of the spine,
It was like the spine, and
so
then
I know it
another.
wasn't, and some of it was that much of, that much section of the bones, and then some of it about like this. But I know it wasn't a squirrel. A squirrel carried all that up there.
Yeah. Bobcat.
Is your stand? Is it like a shooting house or a ladder stand or a elevated platform, roof, walls, windows? What is it?
It's a shooting house.
It's elevated.
So it's got a door on it.
Yeah, it's got a door.
It's got a door.
No, the windows open.
Yes.
No, yeah, they stay open. It's got a roof. It's just got slats about that big all the way around.
Yeah.
It's about 10, 12 foot. We actually put it on a trailer, so that way when they come to mow the power line, we can just move it out of the way.
Wait a minute though. That was in the other stand.
But I still had. Oh, it was, wasn't it?
Yes. And it had a metal ladder.
No, we had steps.
Oh, we did have steps.
Yeah, we did have steps. Yeah.
Okay.
It was. I forgot.
It's a different stand than we got out here right now, but
But
it's still basically the same thing.
It's the same thing. It's the same area.
I can't imagine though. The only thing you could think of that would be able to climb up and around the side of a stand and go in an open window. I mean, it's not going to be a bobcat. I can't imagine seeing a bobcat do that. Maybe a squirrel, maybe a raccoon, but like you said, I don't think a squirrel and a raccoon are going to carry a chunk of spinal column that big. But
I mean, I wouldn't think a buzzard would do it. I wouldn't think a hawk or something like that would do it.
inside of, I mean, maybe. I don't know. I have a hard time with that one. I mean,
it brought it back. you know.
We throw it out, and it came, and most of it came back.
Yeah. So that's,
Wow.
Yeah, because we cleaned it out, and then, like I said, I think it was like a week. Maybe it could have been 2 weeks before the hunting season come in, but it wasn't long because we usually go in and clean it all up and try to get it to where there's not leaves and stuff in there, and that they was in there. So whenever I come back to go hunting, which would have been a week, no longer than 2 weeks, the bones were back in there.
Well, let me ask you this: is this that where that hunting house is? Is that overlooking a field or just a woods or what?
field and the right of way of it's set right in the power line.
Right at the edge of power
Okay,
line.
so it's in the power line. Yeah.
There's thick woods behind me, and then the power line. Then there's thick woods to my left, and then there's thick woods to my right. There's a little bit of a field, but
Yeah.
It's so.
And I think they like fish too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
Well, I 100. Yeah.
Because I got a kind of a deep hole out here in the creek, and my brother had caught several fish, some I think brim, a crappie or something, and one largemouth bass, and it was, I don't know if y'all can see, that bass was, it was probably a 3.5, 4 pound bass. Might have been pushing 5.
That's a
It was
decent
nice.
bass.
It was a nice bass. And he brought it out here, brought all the fish out here, and he didn't feel like cleaning them that afternoon. It's starting, it was getting late in the afternoon. And I told him, I said, well, let's just put them in the creek and you can come back tomorrow and we'll clean them, And so we went over there, put them in the creek, and I watched that bass. He swam upstream and went under this log jam, this stump.
You need to explain the creek.
Well, the creek, that's a deep hole there, and it's all rock going up there. It's just trickling down above that, So I know he didn't swim out of the hole and upstream.
Right.
Or down, and at that time the creek was kind of low.
It was kind of low. So downstream from there also, it was probably maybe 4 or 5 inches of water in places.
Trickling through, yeah.
But he would have had to go through that for 40 yards, and then over a dam, a spillway, and then down in another hole, and then through. There's just so much stuff he would have had to go through.
So what you're saying is your brother, and just so everybody knows, I think what Paul can correct me, but what he's saying is his brother brought over fish that he caught live, kept them live, didn't want to kill them and clean them that night, so they strung them up, they tied them up. You did tie them up.
We just turned them loose.
They turned them loose in the creek because there was nowhere that the fish could go.
Yeah,
because I don't know if y'all know it, but a bass that big is not going to live in water that deep. But anyway, so
this hole that he was in was probably 2.5, 3 foot deep. The hole was. Went out there the next day to get the fish, and every one of them was gone. Even the brim and crappie that he had with it,
they were
all of them was gone.
I mean, there's countless stories of these things fishing, though. In fact, whenever you were talking about the arm splashing in the water, man, there's a ton of stories, especially like up in Alaska and Canada, of people talking about seeing boogers on like logs that go out in the water and laying on the logs, sticking their arm down, and like next thing they know, they pull up a fish. I mean, I've read that and listened to that a bunch. Never seen that.
Yeah.
Hey, Jeremiah.
But
for carp in the bottom. What?
But we had something. I've had this past week. Probably past week's been really interesting. We had something sound like it hit the shop. It was loud enough. I was listening to audio. I had been hunting, and I had some audio. I had my headphones on, He had just went to bed and was just dozing off to sleep, but it was so loud it woke him up, and I heard it through my headphones. And it hit the shop, and then
I guess it was the shop. It was something.
that's where
like
it,
that
yeah,
way.
that's what it sounded like. But then the next day, he was out there cutting up. It was already a tree that was pretty much broken. It just needed to be cut up. It was kind of bent over. And I was downstairs, doing some stuff, and I walked around by the sliding doors, and I looked up and across the creek. There's like a little field, and then there are cedar trees like this, on both sides, and a little gap. Well, at the end of the side of the cedar trees, I saw something big and brown. This was brown. And as soon as I made eye contact on this thing, I mean, just like it went into the woods. But what makes no sense to me is I seen it go into the woods, and then there was little gaps in the woods. I could see the movement. But it was almost like a glitch. I don't even know how to describe it. It don't even make sense into your brain because it was so fast. I've seen it go, come back, go, and come back. So I seen it at the beginning, full body. But then when it hit those woods, I literally thought I was having a stroke or something was going on because it was so fast. And it was like almost like a glitch. That's the only way, because it wasn't even focused. When I would look at it, it wasn't like I was seeing a focused object. It was like, like a glitch. That's the only way I know how to describe it. But and I've seen it in that opening, seen it over here, then it went back, then went back again. And we went over there, and it was about the size of Paul. We done like a little size comparison. I looked for tracks, but there's so much leaf litter in there you can't.
Mm-hmm.
But and then we go to leave out to go meet our son. There's a tree over the road. I mean, it was just a crazy weekend. But then last night.
Well, and then the noise back here.
Oh,
I don't know what.
Yeah, I don't know what that was.
One night last week. Was it last week?
Yeah.
And it sounded like, you ever heard, I'm sure everybody's heard a washing machine get off balance and they start,
Yeah.
We heard that, and then it was like and Greg, you know what I'm talking about, when a furnace ignites and all your burners don't ignite at once, and you'll hear the first one, then you'll hear the second one trying to catch, then the third one. That's a propulsion almost, That's what it sounded like. And there's nothing back here that could have made that sound.
No.
I don't know.
Well, you also said the metal sound earlier, like metal on metal.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a really I don't know how to explain it, but that's a really common thing that a lot of people talk about. Banging on metal sounds, metal on metal sounds, metal gates and doors opening, creaking, rusty metal.
Mm-hmm.
It's stuff that keeps coming. Yeah, portals.
Portals.
It might be. Who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows?
Who knows?
Yeah. And last night we were sitting here watching Miss V's show, and you could faintly hear something way in the distance. And I thought it was on her show at first, but it kept getting louder and louder and louder. And finally Pam grabbed the remote and turned it down, and it was real loud. And she jumped up and opened up the window. Well, you can tell.
Well, as I was going to the window, I could hear it. It was close, and it was a whoop. Something was whooping, and it started out, I don't know how far, but whatever it was fast, because it didn't take long to get here. And then as soon as I slid open the door, it just stopped. No noise. And then
it picked back up. Way down by the river. You could barely hear it down there.
But I could hear it, but then I heard another vocal that was a lot deeper. But these were whoops. And
the vocal
to get from where we first heard it to down by the river.
So was it running while it was whooping?
Yes.
I would have to, yeah. you know.
Okay. And then you heard a deeper vocal afterwards, and then the higher pitch one stopped.
Well, as soon as I slid open that window, it couldn't hear nothing because as I was at the window, I heard it whoop. I knew then what I was hearing. It was a whoop. And then I slid open the window, and then you couldn't hear anything. So we was, being real quiet, couldn't hear anything. Paul was trying to get his phone to record. And then, because I didn't have my recorder right there, I had it off in another room. I didn't have it out. And then I heard, no, actually, you wasn't over at the window yet. I was listening because I could hear it still doing the whoop, but then I heard another deeper vocal, and I was telling him to get over here so he could hear it. And but then he came over there, and you was trying to get your phone to record. I went and got my recorder. By the time we done all that, I mean,
I can still hear it. It was real faint,
Real
almost
faint.
the same loudness as when we first started hearing.
started hearing it.
I talked to a guy in South Carolina that was talking about hearing like a high pitched scream, like running, and then heard like something yell deeper, and the high pitched scream shut up. And he said, "I swear to God, he said it sounded like mom or dad told their kids, like, hey, knock that off."
That's what I was wondering.
Yeah,
If it was something
it
like
could have
that.
been.
Because it was whoop, 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 whoop.
I mean, it was like woo, and then you would hear it. It was just like every 4
Just a few
seconds,
seconds,
4 or
yeah.
5 seconds,
Mhm.
and each time it was closer. But
That's interesting. You guys need to be leaving recorders out. Just
She put it out
I
last
put
night,
it out
and
last
rained
night.
on that
It
night,
rained.
too.
I don't know. I haven't got a chance to listen to it yet. But then the thing is when you record, then you gotta listen.
well,
Right
in
now,
in your case though, if you have recorders going,
mhm.
I mean, even if you had them, which I would never recommend for somebody to have them on, where they only come on whenever they pick up audio,
Mhm.
you need to leave them on the whole time. But in your case, if you just had them on and sitting out there where they only come on whenever they're picking up audio, at least that way, like stuff like this that is so obvious to you,
Mhm.
you could go, "Oh, well, I've got it recorded."
Yeah. I don't even know if my recorder will. I'm not tech savvy.
Yeah,
And
me neither.
to be quite honest, I need to figure out how to adjust it because there's a lot of that white noise. It's not clear. My recordings are not clear, and I need to figure out how to make them clearer.
You probably just need a one of the, I forget what they call them, but the little socks.
I've got
That-
one.
And you're still getting white noise?
Yes, I recorded when I was hunting, and there was a loud knock crack behind my house. Came from behind the house. It never picked it up because there's so much in it.
Hey, Misty was saying there's questions up here. I think she went through and marked them.
Okay.
Before we get off here, let's roll through some of these. Dee Dee said, "Do y'all have game cameras around your house?"
We have them on the property, but not really around the house.
I do have 2 security cameras, and I get the house slapped where the security camera is not pointing.
Of course. Interestingly, have you ever had the security cameras or any of the outside lights? Have you had them moved or the bulbs loosened in them or the bulbs hit with rocks?
No. Mm-mm. Oh, now, okay, the security camera.
Yeah.
Out here that looks over the carport area. There is an on and off switch on the, from outside, that you can turn it on and off, or I can turn it off with my phone. But Paul has to get a ladder to climb up there and reach it. Right after we installed it, the camera quit working. Paul got a ladder and climbed up there, and that stupid thing had been turned off.
How high up was it? How high up is the light?
It's probably, I had to stand on something to reach it.
He's
So probably
10 foot.
10.
I think it's 10.
Yeah.
Probably about 8 foot. I don't know. I'd have to, but he has to stand on like a step to reach it. So his arm length plus a little bit more. So
I'm going back through here looking for these questions. Hey, do y'all ever have any electromagnetic interference with anything? You get weird. It's hard to describe. Like outside stuff, if you have stuff outside that runs off batteries, you have stuff where you put batteries in it and it's just dead the next day.
Wait.
Well, in one area back there,
Mm-hmm.
I put cameras back there, and some of them be brand new cameras, and they'll just quit working.
Going in work.
Yep.
Now I'm going to
Or
tell
the
you.
batteries that go out.
I had something weird happen to me when I was hunting a few weeks ago, and I was recording. I think I was actually hit with infrasound.
Really?
Yes, I was sitting there, and all of a sudden, it was like I was hearing boom, 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 boom in my head. It was literally vibrating my brain. My ears totally went muffled. I mean, I could, it was like that. It was like I was underwater, that type of muffled, but it was like,
Yeah.
woof, woof, woof. And I could feel it in my head, and I was recording. But when I play that back on the recorder,
Was it all jarbled? Was it like?
well, I'll try to send that to you. It seems like whatever I send to you, I'll try to send it to you.
And Greg, tell her about the infrasound if you're looking at it versus.
Yeah, we experienced it. Me, Troy, Cheryl Corntassel, Jimmy Osmer was there. I mean that night was more like a super high pitched squeal.
Mm-hmm.
But if you were like facing straight at it, you couldn't hear it. But if you turned your head, you could hear it in one ear only. Like if I was facing this way, I could hear this ear was like squealing. You
Mm-hmm.
could turn and it would go away. And when you turn this way, you could get it in this ear. You could rotate your head. And it was like it was coming from one direction. You had to be lined up that you could hear it, but you couldn't hear it. It was almost like it was pressure on your ear, but it was like a real super high pitched squeal. But now Cheryl Corntassel wound up, he's got a recording of it. I don't know what he done with it, but he sent it to me. I did have it, but you could hear it. And when it would do that, it wouldn't do it continuous. But it sounded like 5,000 of the little peeper frogs, the little tree frogs.
Mm-hmm.
And them things would just be in a roar. And then all of a sudden those frogs would just blip. It just like you had a mute button. But that's when the frogs would shut up, that's
Mm-hmm.
when you would get that sound in your ear. And then the sound would go away. Well, here after 10, 15 minutes, the frogs would come back and they'd be going at a roar. And all of a sudden that sound would hit you and the frogs would shut up. Everything would go silent.
Well, like the high pitched squeal, is it like a high pitched ringing in your ear?
Yeah, I thought it was my sinuses. I thought it was like sinus pressure or something, but it was like it was just like more like just a beep, and it was horrible. I mean, it was like give you a headache.
What I heard was a boom, 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 boom.
This wasn't even pulsing. This was just a steady, just like a real super buzz.
I catch both. I mean, that's the first time I ever had the whoop, whoop, whoop sound. That I have the high pitched ringing in my ears a lot, even when I'm in the house, and it'll just be one side. And then after a few seconds, it'll go away. But I get it a lot when I'm outside, and I've always wondered what's going on.
Well, what was so crazy about it? I mean, I thought it was my sinuses, and Cheryl and I were standing facing the same way, and Troy was facing us. We're standing side by side, and Troy's facing us. And I was matter of fact, I was like rubbing my ear. I was pulling on my ear and like this. I said, "Golly, man, my ear's ringing." And Cheryl said, "Are you hearing that?" I said, "What?" He said, "You're hearing that high pitch." I said, "Yeah, it's like a super high pitched squeal in my ear." I said, "I'll have it, then it'll go away, and then here in a little bit I'll hear it again." And Troy spoke up. He said, "Well, I've got it too." And we're standing there talking, and it dawns on me. I said, "Troy, are you hearing it in both ears?" "No." I said, "I'm hearing it in my left ear." And Cheryl's like, "Yeah, I'm hearing it in my left ear." I said, which ear are you hearing it in, Troy? He said, my right ear. And we could turn, you could turn, and like I said, it was almost like somebody was shining a light, if that makes sense. It's hitting you on this side, and when you turned, you couldn't hear it. But when your ear kind of lined up with it, that's when you could hear it.
Parker wants to know if y'all have interacted with anything or encountered what you thought was a female.
I kind of think that the ash gray one that I saw, and I don't know why. I kind of think it might have been female just because of the size. It wasn't because I seen anything, that made me think female.
What about the way it moved or anything? Just the size?
Because when I seen it, I just seen it go straight down. It was like on an elevator, but like lightning fast. I've heard I was out in the pool and I could hear like humming, that almost sounded like a child in a way though. It was almost like a melodic type of humming. It was weird.
Wait, a melodic humming?
Yeah. Like right. It wasn't me,
Right.
And because I was like, what in the world? But it sounded like young, almost like a kid,
Have you ever heard the possible? Have you ever heard the sounds that sound like a baby crying?
Actually, I've got some audio that from that. It's the same stuff I've tried to send you. I didn't send you this one, but it sounds like crying. It's hard to tell. I don't know how to.
Now, see, if you were just a normal person that I didn't know and you didn't know anything about Bigfoot or whatnot, and we weren't talking about this subject, if I wasn't me and you weren't you, if it was just like, oh, I heard a baby crying, I'd be very inclined to just immediately write it off as it's a bobcat or possibly a fox, something like that. But if you said the melodic humming, please don't tell. Have you heard melodic whistling? Have you heard where it goes up and down?
Yes. Now I have heard like that. All
right. The humming and the whistling, did it sound like it was moving? Did it sound like it was traveling?
Well, now the whistling, I heard it and then it stopped, and then I heard it again just like a few minutes later, and it was in a different spot, but I didn't hear it. It wasn't like it was whistling and I could hear it the whole moving the whole time.
So going back to your pool thing, where you said that you thought it was there with ill intent. I've heard a lot of people talk. I've talked to a couple people myself, but I've heard a lot of people talk about the melodic whistling and the melodic humming. A lot of people instantly go, well, it's female because it's got that
female
sing song kind of quality. But between that and the baby crying, you know what is a very common theme? A baby crying, a distress sound. It's the same thing with the people that say they hear a dog that sounds like it's whimpering. These people think, every one of them that I've talked to, that it was luring them into the woods.
I never
further and further away.
I never even thought about that.
Like Carrie said, you got to be careful with this shit. So
exactly.
I know, and it probably was just birds we was hearing. But one night weird. We come home, it was late,
like 10 or 11 o'clock when we got home, and
we got out of the car, and the birds was just chirping away out here in the field. I mean, a bunch of them too. It wasn't just one or two birds, But birds don't do that at nighttime.
Well, I mean, normally whenever you hear most birds are not nighttime callers. Normally, whenever you do hear birds go off at night, it's in distress. It's distress.
Right.
This was several, because I looked at Paul. I said, "Are they supposed to be doing that?" He's like, "I don't know. I never heard birds do that at nighttime."
I'm
Dorothy-
happy around.
Yeah, well, I mean-
coming off my stand and be after dark.
Yeah.
I'll go by a cedar tree or something.
Now there's a cedar tree I go by every time, and the doves fly out of it, scare me.
Oh
to
my
death.
gosh, scare I know turkeys will scare the crap out of you like that. Dorothy wants to know, why could some kind of small camera not be hidden inside of an artificial fruit to get pics of these dudes? I would say that, number one, the boogers would probably know the fruit is artificial. Number two, they're not trying to feed
Mm-mm.
the boogers. And number three, I don't think boogers fall for the camera things. I think I think maybe they smell the plastic. Maybe they smell the human on it. Maybe they read the EMF field. Maybe they see in a different spectrum than we do. But
Now, I've got probably 4 or 5 cameras out for wildlife.
Yeah, for wildlife. Yeah.
Seeing what kind of deer is out there.
that's true. That's true.
But we did capture something back during, let's see, it was in April, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
It could be a man. I'm not going to say that it's not, but
So,
I honestly do not believe that it's a man. The more you look at this thing, you can see the breast on it.
or
But
it's like a man.
it looks like a man, but bare chested right in this area here,
But it's dark.
No, it's light. It's kind of a
Light.
grayish light, but you
It's-
can see the nipples. It looked like a man,
Let
And
me see. Send me that. How far away was it?
about around 30 yards from the camera.
Let me see if I can enhance it.
I did a size comparison, and I was pretty daggum close where I was standing as compared to where it was. And this thing is probably the best estimate we can get is 7'3".
Really?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
We
unless
can
you got a
park stick out there.
7'3" naked guy running around on your property.
I don't know anybody around here that's big.
Right.
Um,
Parker wanted to know, whenever you were talking about the fish, whenever you were talking about going fishing where you had tied your lines off and you left and the bait was gone,
mhm.
he wanted to know if you ever found your lines hanging back over the bank.
No, I don't believe I did. No.
What do you think about, just out of curiosity, to kind of, we're going on 2 hours now, so let me scroll down here and see if there's any.
Okay, I need to ask
How-
Greg something real quick.
Do what?
I need to ask Greg something real quick.
Yeah.
I know you have seen these things move. The only time I've ever seen them move is like the grayish one that went down, like I said, it was on an elevator. But what I saw a week ago, like I said, it was glitchy, super fast. Have you ever seen anything like that?
Pam, I've tried to explain to people that part of what I've seen them move, especially the one that was out here in my yard when it took off running, I was 60 feet or so from it. The creepy horror movies where it'll be like one of those crawler things, like in a hallway. It's
Yeah.
like you blink and like flash, flash, flash.
Yep.
And it's like, it's way down there and it's
Mhm.
coming at the camera and it's like jerky looking.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Think about, that's what I've tried to explain to people, and I can't put it in words and make it make sense.
I know exactly.
And I look, I've tried to explain it to people like, if we were watching Olympic sprinters and they're bent over and they got their feet on the starting blocks, and when the gun goes, they launch.
Mhm.
Well, you see them, you can physically see them excel. They start off and the speed starts increasing.
Mhm.
Like when that thing moved out here,
Mhm.
it went from standing straight up, dead still, to like,
Yeah.
mean, it was just like you couldn't see it accelerate, like it was just instantly at top speed.
Yes.
Just
Yes, exactly.
and
It's
that,
instantly top speed, and then that glitchy that you was just describing is exactly
Mhm.
what I was seeing. Exactly.
yeah, that's what I've tried to explain to people. But that's what, if they've ever heard me talk about it, it's the glitchy kind of like those horror movies. I know y'all had to see at least the clips
Yeah.
where it'd be the girl with the weird. Think of the movie. What was it? The one with the ring, the whale, and the ring, and all that. You know,
The
that thing
Ring.
would move. It's kind of like that, and it's crazy. I know that sounds absolutely insane.
You were there at Mark Green's, whatever that, or up at Creepy Mountain, whatever that shadow thing was,
Yeah.
which between the trees. I mean, it just flat went from no movement to thump,
Yeah,
thump. But why did it even come back? It went from one tree to the other one, then back, and then to the other one. It's just weird. It doesn't make any sense.
yeah.
Jeremiah's got a question. Have you heard voices from the woods? Have you heard? And what I think what he's talking about, what a lot of people talk about, where it'll call their dog or they'll even hear their own names being called. Have you heard anything?
Well, when he was building his shop, you know, we already had the house built, and his brothers were out here helping him work on his shop. And I was out. This is, you know, before my sighting, so you know, I was out in the field. I love taking pictures, and I was out by the edge of the power line. We have a wild plum tree out there, and they were just starting to bloom. I was taking pictures. All of a sudden, I hear, "Hey!" sound like it would come from the other side of the power line. I turned, I look, and I could still see in the woods pretty good. You know, there was nobody there. I thought, well, it must have been one of the guys in an echo. So I went on around the tree and was looking at the blooms and taking pictures, and I hear, "Hey!" So I stopped, I looked again, and I thought, now that sounded like it come from the woods, you know, but still in my head. Well, then I made my way on around, you know, the tree, and I heard it the third time. And after I heard it the third time, I knew it was coming from those woods, or I was almost, you know, so I went back to where they was at, and I asked them, I said, "Have y'all been yelling hey?" And they was like, "No." I mean, it wasn't them. So it was either a person or there ain't no people out here. So
Are you getting the 500-pound owl? Do you ever hear the hoo, hoo, hoo?
I've got a recording of that.
You do?
I was in my stand, but it sounds like a bullfrog when you play it.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, it does. Yeah,
But
and it'll look different on a spectrograph too.
Well, and you know, some of the stuff I sent to Mark, and he couldn't get a signature on the owl. It was too far away.
It might be.
He could hear it, but it was like it sounded like a bullfrog.
Well, a lot of this stuff, I keep telling everybody, a recorder never ever does justice to what you hear with your own ear. I mean, just playing it back, even if it's enhanced and everything. I know, like a lot of the screams and calls I've heard in person, I mean, would just you walk away going, "That's not a normal animal." I mean, that's, you know, the sheer force and there's no way to show that on a recording. But with the owls, it's almost comical because it goes hoo, hoo, hoo. And like I mean, it sounds like a 500-pound owl.
Yeah.
I know on Mark's documentary, he's got a recording that he got when we was all back here in the woods.
It was a scream.
But I listened to it on his show.
And
it is nothing like being there in person.
Yeah.
It can't, it's almost like the vocals in real life. It's almost like you feel them. And whenever you hear somebody do it on a YouTube show or anything like that, it just it just does not have the energy that it does in real life. There's no way to describe it.
Go ahead. I was just going to ask PJ something, but go ahead.
No, you first.
I want to ask you what special precautions or things do you do different now where you live than you have anywhere else that you've ever lived in your life? As in, like, for your safety, looking out for yourself. Let's just say tonight, I mean, I don't know if you've got a carport garage, your car's just outside like mine. Let's just say that you realize that 9 o'clock tonight that you got to go outside and get a package out of your vehicle you forgot. You do anything different?
Oh, I mean, you know, he's if I go outside, most of the time he goes out and gets something, but if I've had to go out and get it, he'll He watches me. I don't go out after dark pretty much. My car's right here. So, and even like at my car, if I would go out there to get something and I think that he wouldn't know what I was needing, he'll stand right there and, and I go right there to my car and get it. I don't go, I go when I'm walking from my deer stand, usually he comes and gets me, but the other night I walked back from my deer stand only because I knew where he was hunting and I was afraid that it would be way after dark before he come and got me. And I didn't want to be there after dark in my stand. So I walked. And then actually I was recording with my phone. I was talking because I was going to put it on my channel, and you can hear a growl. I didn't hear it at that time, but something growled. When I got down out of the stand, I heard a grunt come from behind my stand. I thought, okay, well, maybe it was a deer. That's what you tell yourself. But I'm always on high alert. But you can actually hear a growl. But I don't, pretty much, I don't do much of anything. Now, something I had to make myself do this, only for my own sanity. And people might think this is not wise. Why would you do this? But I have made myself go back out there and get back in that swimming pool when he's not here. I make myself do it. Now I don't, now, I didn't any last year because, I take care of our little grandson now and, so I didn't even hardly get in it much last year, but that is one thing for my own, I don't know. I had to do it. I had to face that. I had to. And but I will not, I used to hunt out here all by myself. He would be gone. He would be on his bear hunt trip, hours away. I'd be out here all by myself. I would hunt. I will not do that anymore. When I hunt, he's here. He may not be like, you don't sit in the same stand with me.
Yeah.
Now, sometimes when rifle season starts, he'll sit there with me like that morning because it's like an anxiety thing. But
once you get warmed up, then you can do it.
Then I can do it. Then I'm on my own. Right, he's here, but not right there beside him.
What kind of gun do you carry? What caliber do you hunt with?
I have a 30-30, and then I also carry my 9mm. So, and then I got 2 knives. So,
yeah.
Is that so you can stab yourself in case the 9mm doesn't?
Where if I have to grab something, I can grab anything. So.
Yeah.
You're not going to go out without a fight, is what you're saying.
I'm waiting.
Without a fight. So.
Phyllis wants to know: have all your encounters been scary?
Just that one. Was the only one that I felt like, that I was going to die,
I wonder if she means, have you had any good ones that made you feel comfortable or like they were doing something to be nice to you or something like that? I'm not sure if that's what she means, but just asking. I'll
say this, and that, there might be, I've heard of stories of them saving people's lives, so I'm not going to sit here and say that they're all out to kill people or harm people. But
they have talked about it, Dave. But they've talked about, you have to understand, y'all, if you are just now seeing Paul and Pam for the first time, please go back and watch some of the other shows, not on our channel, but some of the other interviews that they have given. Mark is going in depth. Like I said, God bless him, but Carrie was out there for a long time. But they have given other interviews and they have discussed a lot of this stuff. In order for us to do shows like this with like Pam and Paul, for everybody that watches this, for us to go from the beginning to the end would take 8 hours to cover all of the details.
Probably still wouldn't get it all.
Well, you know what I'm saying, though. Now, what we can do is we can get them back on for another show if they're willing to, and they can go over every single thing. But since this question is up, y'all, would you please talk about finding the handprint on the door? I thought that you said you or someone in your family was there and heard it come up on the deck or something like that. But finding the handprint.
Now we've
That's
had
probably the knock that you engineer.
yeah. Now his sister stayed here with me, and she seen there was something lit up this window out here, and there is nothing there to light up the window. You know,
That
And then
might have been what I was
we
talking
we
about.
was hearing whistling outside, you know, like somebody whistling. And then I heard whoo 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 on the other side of the house. I mean, you know, that wasn't an owl. But you know, we had that kind of stuff going on when she stayed here with me when he was on his bear hunting trip. But as far as the handprints, we hadn't moved in the house yet. We were still working on it. We come out here to work, come in, and I looked over at the sliding doors, and I thought, what is that on the doors? You know, I could see it. So I walked outside and walked around, and the house, it's concrete floor. It has a 2-footer. Then you have 4 or 6 inches of concrete floor, and then the sliding door is on that. So however tall a sliding door is, and this was at the very top of the sliding door, but it was 2 hands, like way bigger than mine. I'm talking huge, and all you could see. Let me get this right. Like if somebody was doing this, so it would be like that much of the hands and the thumb, you know, but you could tell. I mean, you could see the part of the palm. It wasn't like they were smashed flat. It was almost like they was doing like
Right.
this, but they were huge. And I got him. I said, "What is this?" He said that, you know. I said, "Well, it's handprints." And I said, "But look at how big they are." I said, "They're huge," and you know, they was way up on the window, and which he was so. Like when he got here, he wanted to get to work because we was ready to get moved in. So I went and I got some cleaner and went out there and I went to clean it off, and it just smeared. It was just like, and I like to never got that off the window. I had
100%. Greasy,
I had
oily,
taken-
just smears.
Yeah, I had taken a picture of it with my phone, but I lost when I updated to another phone. I lost a bunch of my pictures, and that handprint was one of them.
Did you, whenever you looked at it, I don't know how close you got to it to actually examine it. Did you happen to see any hair, like hair straggles in it?
I didn't pay any attention, which it was like a foot or so above my head. You know, I was standing on the ledge and it was still way above my head. So
You got to get pretty close to see them.
yeah.
Anyway, have you ever heard, what are you saying, Noble? Have you ever heard wah hey? I heard this in several videos. Have you ever heard wah hey?
I heard hey.
Yeah.
Not the wah hey.
Have you ever heard Debbie Jones audio where it says hey Debbie?
Yes.
Oh, that is so freaky.
What was that? Your audio that you're recording?
Oh, I
Listen.
don't think that was Bigfoot. I got something on audio one time. It literally come up to the recorder. I don't even like talking about it because I don't think it was Bigfoot. I think it was something else. And it come up and it said yeah, but it was real creepy. And then you could hear it getting further and further away, and it said it like about 5 times. So
oh yeah.
that was
On the recorded things, Neema. By the way, good job on DA's show the other night, Neema. Really good.
I didn't get to watch that I didn't get to watch them and DA and them till yesterday, and man, they done such a good job.
I only caught 30-40 minutes of it live. Oh, Cam. Hey, brother.
Look at there.
How are you? Hope you had a good Christmas. Happy New Year.
I hope he got plenty of rest where he can really focus on doing some more Steve Lilly pretty soon.
Yeah. Cam, get rest and come to the next camp out. How about that?
Yep. Yes.
Schedule your stuff better, Cam. Hold on. Let me see if there's anything else on here.
Well, let me go ahead and tell everybody something else too. What is it, Pam? What is it? Is it the 11th of this month where me and you and Flat Rock's supposed to be going on Miss Vicky's show?
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I just saw her put Muddy Creek. So apparently, Miss V, it's called Muddy Creek Podcast.
Yeah.
Wide range of strange. Miss V, we'll get your the thing. Man, I'm drawing a blank here. The link to your show, and the thing that people type in, the link. I don't know.
Man,
And-
you had the missing link right there in your hand.
And we'll get it up here so we can post it on here and everybody can find it.
Yeah. Man, I hate Squirrels just dropped out on us. She's like,
She's having internet trouble. It's probably because of the storm. In fact, I keep seeing the bars of my internet drop down to 1, and it's probably because of the snow and all the stuff.
I don't know what was going on with my stuff. I mean, I tried to get my computer. I tried to get my tablet. I'm having to use my cell phone, and I guess Misty kept muting me. I don't know what y'all were hearing. I couldn't hear anything. I don't know what my sound was doing.
I do have a question before we get off here. Hold on. Good Lord, there's a lot of people in chat, a lot of people typing. Too much work to rest. No. You can find a way. You find a way.
Cam, look here. If you need some more hillbilly stuff for Steve Lilly today, brother, just hit me up. I'll give you some real life adventures of a hillbilly.
That would be funny. That would be funny. That would be good. Greg, actually, that's a good point, Cam. You should probably take some of Greg's stuff and just turn it into one of the Steve Lilly saves Greg while he's out hunting, and the motorcycle was going, and the thing was about to tear Greg in half because of the motorcycle.
If Cam would just take like a week vacation, come over and just hang out with me for about a week, he'd have enough Steve Lilly stuff to write for 10 years.
You know what's funny? Is, I mean, I realize as everybody sees this on YouTube, live or later, I realize you click on a Bigfoot show and you're like, oh, this sounds interesting. Let me see what they're talking about. And then you find our show and God bless you. You're like, oh, it's a bunch of rednecks just like randomly talking to people and, cussing and everything. And it's not professional. What's funny is that Greg, Misty, everybody that we know, y'all included, we know the things are real. We've been around them. We've seen them and everything. And we treat the subject, the way that we talk about it, we're just like, yeah, of course. I mean, of course you heard the 500-pound owl. Of course you did. I'm not even asking you, ooh, tell me about structures. Did you find big X's in teepee? That's because we do this. We've been around them. We've seen them. We understand and everything. If you watch this show and you're like, oh my God, these people are just damn idiots. And, they don't even cover the subject seriously. Go back and watch Pam and Paul's interviews on other shows where they go into great detail about a lot of this stuff. In fact, pretty much everybody that we've had on this channel, go back. There's a couple people that we've had that have come on here and they haven't been on other shows. But by and far, for the most part, you can find stuff like Greg. Greg gave interviews on Chuck Slab's Chasing the Beast. How many years ago was that? 9?
Probably 10 or so at least.
At least.
It's been a long time.
He's been on multiple shows telling the same stories. Mm-hmm. They've always been the same. I
went for a long time and wouldn't do a show, and then I did his, and then I waited probably 7 or so years before I finally did another one. I wouldn't do it. And then Mark and Larry's the reason that I'm doing all this. They're the ones that conned me into it, and then here I am.
Wait a minute. What do you mean Mark and Larry is the reason you're doing?
Well, they're the ones
Anyway.
that got me to finally open up, and then you drafted me in.
But my point is, if you go back and look at House's stuff for the past 10 years, he's never changed any details. His stuff, hell, there's a lot of stuff he doesn't talk about because you can only say so much before people are like, there's no way that's happening all the time. Well, I guarantee you that it is. There's 20 people that I know, including myself, that have been to Greg's man cave. If not more, there's probably more than that. I'm probably missing some. And he's got stuff that happens all the time. There are people that have been to Pam and Paul's, and they'll testify to all this stuff. And the point of this show is not to prove to anybody that Bigfoot exists. We know Bigfoot exists. The point of this show is to actually sit down with the people that we know are telling the truth and ask them pointed questions and maybe cover some stuff that the other interviews didn't cover in anything. But this is a place where, hey, if you know about boogers, if you know about them, you come here and we can have a one-on-one, a peer-to-peer kind of conversation, because we're not doubting, we're not questioning, we know. So that's why these things are so all over the damn, well, that and because I'm a horrible interviewer, but that's why these things are all over the place. Well, but we get out a lot of good information. You got to admit that.
Well, the thing for me is I hate it that Greg has the same stuff going on, but at the same time, I know he knows, and he knows that I know what each other has been through.
Yeah.
How you feel when you have dealt with these things one-on-one, face-to-face, face-to-face. And
I can't imagine.
In your mind, I'm going to die. You know?
Yeah.
I can't imagine them being on your property and having to take, I mean, they might move through my property, but they're not staying on my property like they do y'all's. Yeah. I can't imagine all the different precautions and like what he was asking earlier, the way it changes everything that you do in your life once you realize that they're there. Yeah. And like every little thing you think about, okay, do I have to take this precaution or that precaution? I feel bad about that.
Well, and you know, I've had people, and this really makes me mad. I've had people criticize me and say, "How can he make her live out there, or why does she still live out there?" Then and I'm gonna say this right now: nobody makes me do anything. I live out here because I want to, and I could move into a city with not a bush, tree, a blade of grass within forever and get attacked by a human monster. And I've already dealt with that in my life. And, you know, so that right there is a very touchy subject for me. And I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
Because when you criticize my husband, like he's making me live out here, you don't go there.
I thought, Paul, I was getting ready to hit the like camera hide button because I thought she was getting ready to say, "Damn you, Paul," for all this.
No. It makes me mad because I'm doing this because I know there's people out there just like me that's having to deal with this.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm living with it. Nobody's forcing me to. I love it here. But yes, I'm scared that I can be the same way living in town.
I think people like y'all that come forward and actually, I mean, because you got to admit, whenever you come forward and you start talking about this stuff, you're facing, ridicule and people not believing you and everything. So number one, you're brave to come forward. You're brave to stay there in that environment. Like you said, you could leave. Now, I do think, though, that it shows people's character where they're like, no, this is my land. Or, like the people, well, like House, you go hunting. There's a lot of people that have gone hunting and ran into these things and they sold all their stuff and never went hunting again. There's a lot of people that bought a property somewhere and these things showed up and did stuff to them and it freaked them out and they sold the place and they didn't want anything to do with it. It does speak to someone's character.
It
And-
will.
and-
It will change the way you do things
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
for sure.
it changed the way.
I
It
don't-
changed the way just me going camping. You know.
Yeah. I don't hunt
What?
the way I used to, but you know.
Y'all, I've come out of the woods before and finally make it back to my house and sit there and just be shaking, trying to calm down and be thinking, y'all, I'm stupid. This thing's gonna wind up killing me. I'm gonna come up gone, tore limb from limb, and be absolutely freaked out. Sometimes it would be a couple of hours, sometimes a couple of days, sometimes it'd be a couple of weeks.
Mhm.
But the more I dwell on it, my inner redneck hillbilly would get boiling up, and I would get mad, and I would turn my fear into anger, and I'd go back over there. And I'm gonna tell you, there's been times it'd be tough. Now I'd change the way I was doing things. I don't go in there way before daylight, and I'm not in there till it gets pitch black dark anymore. And I'm usually pretty close to a vehicle. You're not gonna catch me roamed off in the woods by myself, very far from a vehicle over there. Now, if I'm somewhere else, it don't bother me. I go places and go for a long way. It don't bother me. But I know what's over here. I don't have to go, well, I hope they ain't here. I know what's over here. I've done dealt with them too long. I mean, y'all, this is 25 years right now. 25. I'm 50. Half of my life, I've been dealing with these things.
Those people, though, that think that you're, like not going into a deer stand until you can see and getting your ass out right before it turns pitch black dark. There are people that are going to laugh and make fun and think that you're just being scared of the boogeyman. Those people have never experienced these things 100%. Safe to say they've probably never even heard one yell, because just hearing one yell, the very first time you hear it, I've got a recording of Bama who never cusses going, oh, and you have to beep it to play it. But those people, they don't understand that's not being scared. That's being cautious because you know what's there. And
I'll say
all
this.
those people, I hope they don't run into one of these things unexpectedly.
I would hunt out here. He would be gone on his annual bear hunting trip. I would leave the house in the dark and get in my stand before dark and sit there all out here, in the dark before daylight, out here by myself. That's what I would do.
Mm-hmm.
Seeing one of these things, knowing,
That's
then
true.
you know, it totally turns your world completely around, and everything made sense then.
Pam, I want to ask you something. Do you think that, I know how it makes me feel when I try to explain what these things look like and try to explain the size, the bulk, the girth, the whole presence of one. I cannot find the words to adequately stress what it's like seeing one of these things on what it's like. I mean, I wish I could. I wish I could absolutely take the image out of my head and put it in their head for just a second, where they could see it and see what it's like. Because when people hear, well, it was 8 foot tall, you cannot, till you see one of these things yourself. For me, in my belief, because I couldn't have imagined what it was like seeing what I've saw. I don't think I've ever done justice to explain what it's like to somebody. Do you think that you ever have?
No. And that's the thing, is you can't. Because I know what it was like before, and just thinking, could these things be real, versus now I know they're real and I know what I saw.
Yeah.
But your brain literally has or it did for me, seeing the sheer muscle mass of this thing. And I call it a thing, but you can't. And I don't want Paul to ever see one like that, because I know once he does, unless it's just one running across the field that never acknowledges him. But if it's a face on, like I had, and
Hey,
you know
Mark.
that thing is looking at you and you're looking at it, it changes your. You can't look at anything the same again.
Mm-mm.
You can't. And and maybe some people can. I can't. I thought I was going to die. So,
The thing for me, Pam, the times that I really thought I was probably going to die wasn't the times when I actually could see it. It was the times that, like the one everybody's heard me talk about, the motorcycle. That one was worked up in such a frenzy, and that thing was about 100 feet, not yards, but feet. I could see about 75, 80 feet was open timber. And then the last, say, 20, 25 feet was this real thick, underbrush. And I'm listening to this thing. It was breaking saplings and just shredding everything around it. And it's like stomping back and forth, and it's tearing up a spot about 20 feet. And that's when it's doing this scream and, bell roar, scream, howl. And here I am. This thing's got me cut off from my way. The only way that I can get back to my truck, I would have to went within 30 feet of it. I'd have went by it to get to my truck. Yeah. So I'm isolated. And, I'm hearing this thing roar, and it's like standing right at the plow on the front of a locomotive and the train pulling on. That's the volume of what I'm hearing. And, I'm thinking, I'm going to die. I'm not going to make it. This thing is so irate, mad, upset, throwing this temper tantrum. And it sounds like when I'm pushing brush with my bulldozer and I'm breaking logs, that big pile of them, and I'm hearing this stuff crack and pop. And then I'm watching a dogwood tree, nearly as big as a 5-gallon bucket at the base. And this whole tree is whipping back and forth and going round and around and shaking. I couldn't do that with my tractor.
Yeah. His nephew saw that out here.
And y'all, I mean,
everybody hit the tree.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking this thing, if it figures out that I'm here, because I figured out pretty quick that it was mad at the motorcycle. And I am praying to the Lord that this thing is not going to come my way, because if it sees me, I'm going to be the first thing that's out of place, and it's going to take all this horrible anger is going to be focused on me.
Yeah.
Y'all, I'm telling y'all, that's as scared as I've ever been.
The greatest Bigfoot encounters I've ever heard is Greg's motorcycle. I love that story.
Y'all, I really thought I was going to die, and that's how bad that bothered me, was when I finally made it back to the truck, when my adrenaline just totally dumped. I got sick and threw up. I mean, that's how bad it was.
Well, y'all, we're pushing 2.5. See, we could have just started from the beginning. But anyway, have you ever experienced any loss of time? That's the last question.
Yes, right after my encounter.
Really?
Yeah.
Whenever she said, "Don't look at it," and I turned and I looked back down at the water, and my ladder was about 15 foot away. And I knew I had to get over there to it, but I didn't know where this was, because where my ladder was and where this was, like my ladder I'd say would be like at 11 o'clock, and this was like at 1 o'clock where I seen it. And I was trying to look. Paul's carport, where he parks the truck, has a roof on it that kind of comes over the sides a little bit. So I was trying to, back up and look around. I was trying to see if it was coming towards me. I couldn't see it, and in my mind, I'm thinking, I'm going to die. I'm going to die. And I turned and I looked back at my ladder. And I don't remember getting out of my pool. I don't remember. The next thing I remember, I was standing on these concrete steps that we made to go down to where the pool is. I was standing on those, and I was looking around. I remember scanning, and it was like I was in a fog. And then I remember, running up the steps. I remember coming in the house. But I don't know. And the best that I can kind of calculate, because usually when I would get in the pool, I would try to plan it out. I could get in there and clean it and get out and come in and rinse off because mine's a chlorine pool. It's not a saltwater pool. I was always come in, rinse off, and get back down here and get supper going before he would get home. Well, I came in and I remember I was in my shower, so I took a shower. But I came in and I took a shower. And when I was coming down the stairs, Paul was walking through the door. So unless my timing was off on that day, there was probably 30 minutes that I can't calculate.
Last thing, I promise. Have you you guys ever seen any UFOs? Anything paranormal out there?
Yes. We've seen, now this UFO, or I guess that's what it was. I seen it one day. Now this wasn't right here at the house, but it was on my way to work. It was the oddest thing. I'm going to pull up the picture and show you. But it was a...
He said it was shaped like those, those party balloons that big and then get small, big and get small, big and get small. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
They're a little skinny balloon, and they're real long. Most of them are, like 3 or 4 foot long. They're real skinny, but they just got little bumps on them.
I got you. Yeah.
Okay, it was like that, but it was probably the size of 2 or 3 Greyhound buses. It had no lights on it, and it wasn't super high, but it wasn't super low to the ground either. The clouds actually blocked it. I pulled off the side of the road to get a picture of it, and when I did, the clouds rolled in front of it, and I missed it. But this thing was humongous. And it was it was just before daylight, it was still dark for me going into work, but the sky was bright enough that I could see. And this thing was big. I don't know what it was, but I did go online and I found one online that looks a whole lot like it. And I did a snapshot of that.
Now, me and him have seen things in the sky before where like it'd be going straight and then all of a sudden just make a complete right or complete left or.
I just saw that a couple months ago, and I was not looking for anything like that. We were camping, and I saw that. It was like a blue light. It was moving 3-4 times faster than a plane would, and it stopped and went straight right, like 90 degrees. I've never seen anything like that.
We've seen that.
And we've seen orbs. I've seen them a couple times. Paul's seen them. Paul's sister's seen them.
You've seen orbs there on the property? Because I know you talked about with Carrie.
Yeah.
Was it Carrie recorded? Carrie recorded one?
Yes, he recorded. He filmed it.
Yeah.
I've seen one right here in this corner window over here. And it'd be like
do you think
right here?
Do you think the orbs are separate? Hey, Abby.
Orb. About the size of probably a soccer ball, or maybe just slightly smaller. Real bright. White.
Do you think that the orbs are Bigfoot? Do you think that they're connected to boogers? Do you think that the supernatural and all of this stuff is attracted to the same area or the same person? Do you have any thoughts on any of that? Do you think that they're all the same thing? They're all different?
Yeah, I don't.
I mean, I think that Sasquatch has more abilities than just flesh and blood.
Oh, I agree.
I mean, I believe they're flesh and blood, but there's something more to them. And as far as the orbs and stuff like that, I mean, I don't know. It seems like when you have Sasquatch activity, you seem to have a lot of the orbs. But, I don't know.
I found a picture of that. I don't know if
Sure.
y'all see this or not.
Yeah.
That's 2 different pictures that I snapped online.
Let me see. Oh, I was trying to see what I was looking at. Can you see that?
Kind of. Yeah.
Here.
Yeah.
Yeah. It does look like one of those balloons.
Right there.
Hmm.
That's
I
but that's
don't know.
but
Yes, a little twisted. Something. They got
But this was-
something
it was-
going on.
It was like 2 or 3 Greyhound buses. Is how big it was. You know.
You
Wow.
didn't lose any time after that, did you?
No, I made it to work on time too.
Just making sure.
Yeah,
now
our
as
daughter's seen
our
a
daughter
light in the creek
seen a light in the creek.
that went into the creek.
Went
and
into the
disappeared.
creek. You know, she was standing there. She was going to walk up the creek, and she said she looked up, and there was a glowing ball right there, about a foot above the water. When she laid eyes on it, she said it just dropped into the water and literally splashed.
Do you
Really?
know how many people in the past year, and especially with the stuff happening, we got a thing on the second to last show, so I got to be careful with what I say on YouTube. But with the stuff that was happening in the northern East Coast,
Yes.
there's been a lot of people talking in the past month, and a lot of people incidentally in the past year talking about seeing orbs come up from the water, specifically the ocean, but a lot of people have said from lakes and other stuff. Go ahead, Greg.
Well, that's kind of cool though. What Pam just said, that orb went into the water and the water splashed.
Yes.
So wow, yeah, that means it's not just a ball of light, because
Yeah.
light don't make water splash.
Our daughter is a police officer. She's very observant. You know, she very aware of her surroundings, and it freaked her out. She says, "I ain't never seen anything like that." You know,
Wow.
and but you know, she said it was only about 6 foot in front of her. She said she just looked, and then
That's
she
close.
got to looking. She like there's something. You know, she knew it was just a round ball, but you know, it didn't make no sense to her, like none of this does. And so she said she was looking around to see if there was anything else like it, you know, that fell out of the tree. But she said the branches on the tree wasn't moving. But she said it just was about, I think she said about a foot or so above the water when she seen it. It just straight to the water.
Wow.
There's something you don't hear every day.
Mm-mm.
All right, guys, 2.5 hours, a little over 2.5 hours.
I've got to fix this girl right here some chili.
Oh, I've got some chili.
You know, that ain't just on our property here. This whole area around here, I bet you it's a 15 or 20 mile area right here.
Mm-hmm.
Is the same way.
Yep.
Wow.
Well,
We've talked to
If we-
people.
that's what I was going to ask you. Like, if we didn't cover enough stuff, I was going to ask you about, like, have you heard stuff from people around there?
Yeah.
No, hold on. We'll do a part 2, 2.5 hours. I do want to hear what the people around you have had to say. Are they seeing the same stuff that y'all are seeing?
Yes.
Yeah. Now,
Has anybody?
I interviewed a young man, and he said that this thing chased him and his wife and his wife's best friend. And he said it looked a little bit different than a Bigfoot. He said it looked like a Bigfoot, but it was different.
I think it had a snout.
He said it had a little bit of a snout on it. I said, "Did you see
Oh, wow.
ears?" He said, "No." He said, "But it had." He said it didn't have a flat face. He said it had a snout.
So kind of the type 3s. With a lot of people. Well, according to everybody back in the day before Kumbo quit being public in the Bigfoot world, there was a lot of the type 1, type 2, type 3. Type 1 is like the patty type, you know, with the conical head and, you know, just hefty. Type 2s have a round head. They're more muscular, a little bit smaller. Type 2, a good look at type 2 is on the cover or the ones depicted in the book called Us and Them, talking about what Neanderthal probably really looked like. And then type 3, the Beast of Seven Shoots, is a good example of a type 3. Then you get into, and the type 3s a lot of people that talk about like Gugway
Mm-hmm.
is probably a type 3 where it does have a pronounced kind of snout area, pronounced canines, very aggressive, supposedly. I'm just quoting what I know, but
Yeah.
stuff like that, though, hey, anything with a snout appears to be fairly aggressive. I don't even want to talk about the dog man thing. So, anyway, y'all, hey, Pam, is the name of your channel Giants in the Woods?
It's
Giants
PJ
of the Woods?
Sasquatch Giants of the Woods. If you type in PJ Arkansas Sasquatch, I think it pulls it up. You don't even have to type up the Giants of the Woods.
Actually, if you just type in PJ Arkansas, it'll show some of your shows. But anyway, we'll get a link and throw it up here.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let me see. Squirrel's internet died because of the storm. So there we go. That's what I want. Anyway, thank y'all for everybody that watched. Appreciate it. Hit the like and subscribe if you would. Go check out Pam's channel. Jeremiah, that was in here, Bigfoot Society. Check out his channel. Sawdust Beast. Chris Reinhardt, Discover Sasquatch. Everybody, I forget everybody that we know and everything, but you can find them. And anyway, maybe we can get Pam and Paul back on to do like a follow-up where we can talk about what their neighbors have seen.
Yep.
That'd be another 2 hours.
Family.
Since I got this little girl right here that everybody knows, tell them for me.
We love y'all. Y'all be safe today because of the storms.
We love y'all too. And you look so much like our granddaughter. It's mind blowing.
Well, big love, everybody. We'll see y'all later.
Okay.
Right. Love
See
y'all.
you guys.
All right. Love you. Bye. Bye, everybody. Thank you. Bye.
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 Squirrel.
Hey, y'all. Hey, Spencer. We're swapped
Hello,
around.
Huh?
We're swapped around again. Hold on.
Yep. I know you do it on purpose.